welcome back to another episode of the Dicebearers. I have with me Aleksa.
Yo!
And I, of course, am Chris. And we are finally on to one of the big four. Today we are covering all things Isengard.
We definitely didn't do this 2 months ago.
And it had a failed recording.
It's okay, it's just a short one, right?
Yeah, it's only the longest set of slides we've had so
Only
far.
41 slides,
Yeah.
that's fine.
It's fine, right? Now, Isengard, talk me through the models. What are your thoughts?
So Isengard, I think, obviously there's a whole heap of new ones that all just generally look great. The Dunland stuff and the new Saruman. But I think Isengard holds up really well models-wise, because I think we've talked about it a few times. There were certain things that, even 20 years ago, they had a pretty solid grasp on how to sculpt, and that's armor, cloth, and ugly faces. And guess what Isengard has all three of?
Well, they have a bunch of faces I'm sure they tried to make look good, and it just so happened to come up with orc faces. Right?
Exactly, see?
Yeah. These are probably Space Marine miscasts.
I mean, they really are the Space Marines of this game, right? Like,
Yeah.
They're just, like, all around good at everything and expensive.
Yes. There really are no gaps in the Isengard list. I think there's actually a few too many things to cover the same roles in the Isengard list, which is a great problem to have, but I wish it was fleshed out across different army lists as well.
Yeah, I think Isengard suffers a little bit on sort of... There's just a lot. It's not a bad thing. It's a good thing, but it's also a bad thing.
It's a good thing to have a bad thing in.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, you can run Isengard in so many ways, and we'll get into that definitely when we get to the list, but it's just a huge range, and I think there's something for everyone in it. Like, Scouts and normal Uruk Hai are very different aesthetics.
Yeah.
And they both work quite well. Berserkers, I just think, are sick. Crossbows are cool. Dunland, especially the new Dunland stuff, looks great. But even the old stuff, I actually think is pretty good for the most part.
It all fits together. I think that's the best part way to describe
yes.
it. It fits together just really well.
Yeah, so just overall, aesthetically, really solid. Now, a quick, cheeky little list overview. So, strengths. Just powerful baseline troops. Uruk Hai are just generically good. They are fight 4, they are strength 4, they are D5 or 6, depending on whether you bring scouts or non-scouts. Yeah. You can bring crossbows, you can bring pikes. It's just a solid baseline of troops. They also have a ton of heroes.
A few too many named ones.
Obscene amount of heroes, to the point where if you're taking a generic hero, you're playing like 1,200 points because you've got so many named ones.
Or a Legendary Legion.
Or a Legendary Legion that has no named heroes, yeah.
Yeah.
And
I wonder why you said that, yeah.
No, it's terrible. Legion sucks.
Yeah, it's true, yeah.
And finally, they're a list that can play all 3 phases. They've got good combat, they've got good shooting, and they have arguably the best wizard in the game.
Yeah.
Depending on what you're looking for.
Yeah, I think point for point, in terms of offensive spellcasting, there is nothing in the game that can really match him.
He's definitely the best offensive caster in the game, Saruman that is. But you could argue there are better control and support casters in the game. But in terms of the slot he fills, which is spell-based damage output, you can't beat him. He is the most consistent. He has the best damage spells. He's got decent control spells. Like, he's got pretty good ones. He doesn't have the best ones. He doesn't have like an AoE Nature's Wrath or something like that.
Jeez.
but he's got Immobilize, he's got Command, he's got Sork Blast. Those are all very solid spells. He's just missing the sort of defensive, Blinding Aura, Healing, Restore Fate, all that. He doesn't have those.
Yeah.
So there are better support casters than him, but there is no one better at just outputting consistent damage every time through magic.
Yeah, definitely. I think you kind of hit the threshold of like your wizards, your starry level characters, and then the next thing that can really rival them is like a Dark Lord style model. And that's because they can do everything, inclusive of the combat as well. But,
yeah, again, the only thing they're missing is the healing stuff, but that's obviously because that's more of a good side thing.
Exactly, yeah.
But in terms of, you're looking at literally like Galadriel is a similar level control caster, but doesn't have damage, but she has a little bit of support with like healing and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Gandalf is just not as good of a caster, but he's slightly better in combat, and depending on his version, he's either cheaper or more expensive, but he has more variety of tools. He has Blinding Aura, stuff like that.
I was going to say, second attack and the toolbox itself is almost better.
But it's a lot of points. It's 50 extra points on
Exactly.
Shadowfact, which is a huge difference.
Yeah.
Which is why he comes out, but he has to use those tools. He gets more tools, but he's way more expensive.
Has to make use of them.
Yeah, exactly. You actually have to use Gandalf in combat to get value out of him, whereas Saruman, if he never hits combat, you're like, cool.
You're sailing. Yeah.
Exactly, yeah.
Now, the list does have a couple of weaknesses as well. The most obvious one is its expensive profiles you're paying for. Every base you put down, outside of things like Wildmen and Orcs, which don't fit into your army natively perfectly, you are paying a lot of points for them. That, as well as there's no real dedicated cavalry models. You have a couple of pseudo-cavalry models and cheapo cav that can fit similar sort of just, I'm a 40 mil base with a knockdown. but nothing that's a dedicated high impact cavalry, I think.
There's no lances. It's only strength 4. You're like, oh cool, I hit D5. I'm still winning on, not great.
Yeah.
Still 5s. It's good. Like, Warg Riders are just a really good profile in general, but they are not, even Ministerial Knights are going to way outperform damage-wise when they're hitting something on a charge.
Yeah, and I think if you're using cavalry and you're not using them on the charge, you are wasting your points anyway. And so I think you have to kind of look at cavalry as an in isolation when this model is charging. How useful is it?
And Warg Riders are useful. They're just not the best.
Yeah.
That's it. That's sort of just it.
Exactly. If they're no Serpent Rider, right?
Oh, God. They're no impact hit.
Yeah.
All right, Chris, why don't you take it away with the army bonus?
Yes. You do not know pain, and you do not know fear, says Isengard. Friendly Isengard models do not take courage tests for being broken until at least 66% of the models have been removed. So, basically what that means is, if you have the Isengard keyword, you don't break, or you break, but you don't roll your break test until you've lost 2/3 of your model instead of half your models. Additionally to that, Lurtz, Ugluk, Mauher, Vrasku, Uruk Hai Scout Captains, and Uruk Hai Scouts gain the Woodland Creature Special rule. Fantastic, isn't it?
I'm just so confused why it's part of the army bonus.
Yeah, it is a bit strange.
It's a bit odd, but it is what it is. So this is obviously a very strong bonus, especially because Isengard is actually, for how expensive their models are, fairly low courage army. Your warriors are 10-point guys on courage 3. You're like, that's a lot of points on something that's only courage 3. That's running away like about half or more of the time once you're broken. It is also important to note that there are a lot of things that don't have the Isengard keyword that are in Isengard. So Orc Warriors, Warg Riders, Dunland, birds.
Yeah.
Birds are a big one. So that's very important to keep in mind, because it also means that you're not taking standfast tests, which means those things can run away before your heroes that have the Isengard keyword start taking their test.
Yeah.
Which actually can make them very susceptible. So it's just something that you have to be cognizant of when you're playing the army. You also still give up points for being broken. This is a very sort of... When you read the rule, and you're like, I don't take break tests, I'm not broken. It's very different, those two things. You are broken. Your opponent scores points for breaking you. If anything triggers off you being broken, it's happened.
Yeah.
But you just don't take courage checks on your characters.
Yes.
And models and stuff.
Yeah. Which leads to some weird games where the game ends on a 1 or 2, before either player actually rolls
a single courage check.
Yeah. I played games like that before. It does happen. Not often, but it does happen. So... yeah, but without any further ado, shall we jump into our first model?
It is him, Saruman. So, as we talked about it, he is the most reliable caster in the game. He has a built-in reroll. He has all of the best casting values for the spells he has. He's got 4+ Sork Blast, huge. Gandalf's on a 5 boss, unless he's White Wizard mode. He's got 2+ Immobilize, best it can be. 3+ Command, best it can be. 5+ Flame Burst. Okay, he's no Kadush, but no one's Kadush, right? Come on, guys. Who can compete with the best wizard in the game?
Yeah, model just kills all his friends to power up.
But yeah, so Saruman, 180 points. He's a wizard, Isengard infantry hero, so he doesn't take break checks till 33. He is a hero of legend. You get 18 guys. You ought to pass your first courage check. Huge. Movement 6 base, as you'd expect. Fight value of 5, actually pretty solid. Means you can throw him into combat once he's got his horse. Strength 4, again, pretty solid. Can knock out dudes. D5, 1 attack, so not reliable. 3 wounds, big, he's tough. Courage 7, so he's basically...
Excuse me?
He's courage
7? What?
It's higher than a ring wraith.
Why is this in the game?
He's braver than a ring wraith, unless you roll double once. He's not fleeing. Oh, he's got a free will as well, by the way. He's not fleeing.
Yeah.
Finally, 3 might, 6 will base with a free 1 every turn thanks to his Staff of Power, and 3 fate. For war gear, he just has the staff. You can stun people. It's hilarious. For heroic actions, he just gets channeling, so nothing defensive, nothing offensive, but he doesn't need it. Just channel some flame bursts. And finally, for options, he's got a horse. You're giving him a horse. I don't see why you would ever not. It makes the casting so much better. It gives you so many insane angles. For special rules, he has the Palantir. So, once per game, the controlling player can use the Palantir to automatically win a priority roll. The use of this special rules must be declared before any dice are rolled priority. So, basically, when you go for your priority roll, you can just say, I win this turn. Now, what does this mean? Well, it basically means your opponent's out of might, you say, cool. Let's go, boss. It's my priority. I'm going to win. It's very good, isn't it?
Yeah, I definitely think so. The one thing I wish is you could use it to lose.
Yes,
but
I agree.
Okay.
If you could use it to lose and be like, all right, cool, go. Walk into me, boss.
Yeah.
That would be really huge. But obviously, that's not an option. You can also use it to force might, especially when if you set up a turn where all of the heroes are within 3 of Grima, who we'll talk a bit later.
Yeah.
And you can just be like, all right, use your might, boss.
I think that's the only other time I'd use the paladin.
Outside of 0 might.
Yeah.
Or no, okay. I would use it in cases where you have skirmishes between units that are off to the side. So let's say there's a bunch of cavalry off to the side fighting my Uruks. My Uruks are within 6.
Okay.
And there's no hero with them. I'd
Yeah.
use the planetary and just like, I'm going to charge your cav. You don't get your bonus attacks. And I'm going to try and kill them before they can ever win.
Do
So
anything else,
if
yeah.
there's somewhere where there's no might, that going first is relevant, you would use it. The most impactful usually is when you've burned all your opponent's might, or you've got Grima denying might, something like that. Or, like I said, when there's a situation off on the flank where there are no heroes involved, and you can just say, my Uruk Hai are going to charge your cavalry, or my Uruk Hai are going to do this, or something like that. Those are the sort of main situations that Palantir would come into play.
Yeah, definitely.
But he's got more, as if that wasn't enough. So, voice of Kurunir.
You almost got it.
Kurunir? Yeah, sounds
Almost.
right. It sounds like a bird. It's a bird. So he's a bird.
Voice of the Crebain. There you go.
The voice of the Crebain. So, Saruman's Standfast has a range of 12. And unlike other hero models, Standfast can affect other hero models. This is big. Your heroes now don't run away.
It also means in an alliance, you just affect any models you ally.
Exactly. It's just big. It's very high value. Again, your heroes aren't great courage values. They're only 4. You don't want them to be taking courage less than courage 4 heroes.
Yeah.
Just saying, Saruman can't fail.
Yeah.
Now, everyone else can't fail. It's pretty good. Finally, Lord of the Istari. So, Saruman the White can choose to reroll 1 dice when making casting or resist rolls. I didn't even realize he could do it when he resists. Oops.
Did you not?
I did.
How long have you played him for?
It's almost never. No one's ever cast spells on my Saruman.
Okay,
it's
that's
fine.
fair, actually,
I
yeah.
played one game against Gandalf and he didn't cast anything on me, okay?
Yeah,
it's
good.
fine. So this is what makes him just obscenely reliable in terms of
Yeah.
casting it. It means that if you do a 2 dice Sorcerer's Blast,
You're rolling 3 for it all the
it's
time.
like a 90% to go off.
Yeah.
It's obscene. It's so crazy. It just like, you roll 2 dice and you basically just say it goes off unless your opponent has resists, which you're not going to target things that can resist unless you really have to.
Yeah, just don't play Loveline.
Yeah, look, that's true. Or bears.
Yeah, or
Bears do it too. It's really annoying.
Yeah.
So with that, let's go into his powers. We talked about it a little bit. So Immobilize, 18-inch range, 2+, Terrifying Aura, 2+, cast it himself. Command, 18-inch range, Sork Blast, 12-inch range, Flame Burst, 6-inch range. All really good casting values. 2+, 3+, 4+, and then 5+ is on the Flame Burst. That's the only one that's not great. Everything else is insanely good.
Yeah.
And when you're flame bursting, it's usually going to be a channeled one, and you're just going to pump everything into making it work. So you just don't have to worry about it, really.
Yeah, definitely.
And the thing that also makes him scary is the 18-inch range. 18-inch command is just really huge. And with the other things you can bring in the list, like a lot of crossbows, you go, all right, 18-inch command on your character. He's going to walk out, 10 crossbows are going to shoot him.
Yeah.
Or they burn a bunch of will resisting at 18-inch. And it's like, that's such a huge threat range to have on a spell like that.
Exactly.
And it's just extremely valuable. It's huge.
I think it's that as well as the fact that, like, when you're using your command or compel to drag something around the battlefield 18 inches away, they don't always know what you're trying to do with it. Like, the amount of times that someone will just, like, not process the fact that they're about to get dragged in front of crossbows because they're just looking at a Saruman who's, 15 inches away from where the crossbows are and is concerned about being dragged that direction or away from Saruman and then just get nuked out because they didn't throw enough dice at the resist or didn't choose to resist it at all. Like, I've seen it happen on so many tables where people just aren't thinking about why or where people are being moved to. They're just thinking, oh, they've moved the model because they've had the spell to do it. They may as well have rolled something.
It just means you can start putting pressure on your opponent from turn 1. Which,
Literally,
with 12-inch Sork Blast, some missions you can. A lot of missions, though, it's too risky to walk into a 12-inch Sork Blast turn 1 until your opponent's moved up a little bit.
Yeah.
And so being able to just go, command, walk someone out, or just walk a banner away, even. Just like,
Yeah.
your banner's now 3 inches behind the rest of your army. Next turn, I'm going to do it again. Are you going to walk your guys back to protect it? Are you going to keep it there? What are you going to do? Like, you just ask your opponent a question, and if they don't have a good answer, it's just going to mess them up.
Yes, and I think that's... We've said it a few times. That is how you win games. It's by forcing your opponent to make more mistakes than you make. And every single time there's a forced error in a game, it's usually you winning the game harder because their mental is going to get worse and worse and worse as they keep making those choices. It's fantastic.
Yeah, it's solid ability, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Shall we jump into his best friend or accomplice?
Accomplice?
Accomplish, apparently.
His accomplished friend.
Grima Wormtounge. So, for 25 points, you get a man, Isengard infantry hero, independent hero. He is movement 6, he's fight 2, 4+ shoot value, strength 3, defense 3, 1 attack, 1 wound, coach 2, 0 might, will, fate. How fantastic. He has to come in a warband with Saruman, although there's a couple of ways you can use him. Let's talk about everything else first, then we can come to that rule. So, Grima can take a horse for 10 points. He's equipped with a dagger base, so he can fight you. He can even stab if he really wants to be ballsy with it. And he's got 2 special rules that he's kind of famous for. The first one is Wormtounge. If an enemy hero is within 6 inches of him, they have to spend 2 points of might when they want to call a heroic action instead of 1. If you don't have 2 points of might, bad luck, you're not calling anything. You can still bump a 5 to a 6, for example, to win a fight, but you cannot call heroic move if you've only got 1 might in the bank, and you have to spend 2 might if you want to call that move, which is just absurdly powerful to kind of force might off of your opponent like that. The other rule, which this one's a bit confusing. Grima,
it's 3 paragraphs.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Grima can do one of 2 things at game start. He can deploy in Saruman's warband, which if you bought Saruman and Grima as the package, you have to place them in that warband if you're doing it this way. If you do that, he deploys just like any other model in your army. Fantastic, no special rules to keep track of. Keep going. If you don't do that, and you deploy in your opponent's warband, which before deployment begins, you have to pick a warband to deploy the model in, and you deploy them just like any other model. So your opponent will finish deploying their warband, then you drop Grima down into that deployment zone as well. He has to adhere to all the other deployment rules and regulations of either the mission or the warband deployment itself. And Grima gets a couple of things to benefit from this. The biggest one is he can never be charged and then killed in a combat unless Grima wants you to. So I, as the opponent of Grima, can charge him and can tie him up and get rid of his control zone, but I then cannot make strikes against him if I win the fight. If Grima charges me, his cover is blown, and I can kill him again normally. But 99% of the time, Grima is just going to be walking around in the middle of my lines, just being as in the way as possible, blocking space, blocking combats, blocking everything he physically can, as well as all ranged shots. No shot can be made through Grima as if I were a friendly model.
No, it's worse.
As a good model sort of thing, isn't it?
Yeah, so it's worse. You can't. It's not like you can't shoot through him as good. As evil, you cannot do it either.
Yeah.
So no matter what, even if you normally would be able to shoot through allies, you cannot shoot through Grima.
Yeah. Which is just another one of those super frustrating special rules. But for 25 points, probably 35 points, if you're willing to splurge on it a little bit as well, you get one of the best control zone denial models in the game. And combo that with one of the best control offensive casters in the game. Like, it's absurd how much you get out of these 2.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's sort of a few traps on Grima as well. So if you're playing against like a horde army, never deploy Grima on their side of the table. Because what's going to happen is 3 5-point models are going to stand around Grima in a circle or in a triangle and say, you can't move Grima now unless you charge me.
Yeah.
And then they've just sacked, like 18 points to effectively kill 35 points of your army.
Yeah. Which is part of the argument of why bring him on the horse as well. I've seen it go either way. I think you can bring him on the horse if you want to. Some games it'll be super valuable to. Some games it will be irrelevant to. And that's just the nature of
most of my games.
Like that.
I bring him on foot and I just stand him behind my line. No one's going to really be able to do much to him anyway, unless your entire army's dead.
Yeah. You really do have to treat him, if he's deploying in the Isengard side of the battlefield, you just have to treat him like a banner, basically. A model you need to do everything you can to keep safe, avoid being shot for a turn or 2, all that sort of stuff, and then, once lines meet, walk him out from behind a building, and just wait for next turn.
Yep. It's just like it takes a little bit of practice to make sure he doesn't just die from shooting, but it's very doable. Like in almost all of my games, he will just deploy in my army, and I've never lost him. I don't think he's ever died. Not in our games, he hasn't.
No, that's fair. Actually.
And I've almost always deployed him in my warband, so it's just like you'd think only 1 wound defense through, but like realistically, it's very easy to hide him and just pull him out once lines meet. Once line meet, like if someone's declaring a combat, they're doing it within 6 of him. They're spending 2 might, and if they do that to go kill him, you're like, cool, you just wasted 2 might to kill Grima. He's done his job already, and now your hero is like in my line with like 1 might at most, probably 0.
Yeah,
I'm
and
like,
I think
cool.
that's the thing, isn't it?
I'll take that. Like, and your hero's just gonna get swamped by Uruk Hai and get his head smacked in. Like,
yeah, he's a very upsetting bait piece. I think.
Exactly. Yeah. So yeah, very solid overall. A lot of different ways to use him. Like the other one is horse and he just takes up space, but then he's a lot of points. Like 35 points. Almost any army, if they put 3 of their troop warriors around you, even elves, you're spending more points to be there than you are not.
Not to be, yeah.
And also magic ignores any of these downsides. Magic can just target him freely.
True, I forgot to mention that.
So if you're playing against a wizard, they're just going to kill him. If you're playing against Lothlorien or something with a sentinel, the sentinel is just going to be like, your courage 2, take a courage check, you're going to walk 10 inches the other way now.
Yeah.
So against those armies, you have to be very careful not to just deploy Grima in their warband. If you're just doing it automatically, you're just going to randomly lose them a lot of games. So
yeah, definitely.
Just something that you need to be aware of. But
that being said, though, he is still phenomenal for what he does.
Yeah, he's great.
Yeah.
He's very solid for 25 points. Especially, it's there's a lot of different things he can do for you. And he buffs up Saruman effectively. He buffs up the Palantir. He just does a lot for your list. He's a force multiplier in a way.
Yeah, I think that's exactly it. If you're losing the game, he can help slow that loss. But if you're winning the games, he'll compound that into like a 3 to 5 win to a 12-0 win.
Yeah,
like
a slight lead from Grima can make a slight lead into a massive one by just denying your opponent. Because Might is frequently a comeback tool. Yeah. Might is you call a combat, your hero pops 4 kills in a turn. You call a move to get all your charges in that you want. He denies your opponent their comeback tool.
Exactly that, yes. And I think this is a model that really shows you, as the opponent, which models are and are not the ones that are causing you the grief in the games. But I think, 25 points, Grima's phenomenal. 35 points, still really good, but just worth considering that question of, what am I most likely to face in my local meta? Is it worth dunking the extra points into?
Yeah, with that, let's move on to our next hero of the day. He is Lurtz, the 90-point Uruk Hai Isengard Infantry Hero of Valor. He's got a move of 6, a fight of 5, 3+ shoot, which is actually relevant, strength 5, smashing, defense 6, 3 attacks, 3 wounds, and courage 5, with 3 might, 1 will, 1 fate. His war gear is armor, sword, and Uruk Hai bow, and he is a classic war gear instead of heroic actions. He does have a march, strike, strength, and challenge, so he has probably 2 of the best all-arounders with March and Strike. He can bring a shield for free. There's obviously no reason not to. He can't use it for plus defense, but he can use it to shield and go to 6 dice. Finally, he has the special rule, find the halflings. Any warband led by Lurtz does not have to roll to determine when and where it arrives in scenarios that require such a roll. Instead, Lurtz may choose the result. This means that in, in any maelstrom, he rolls a 6, unless you don't want him to, in which case he rolls a 1. In any sort of reconnoiter, he can choose what he rolls, so on and so forth. Very solid. What do you think, Chris?
I think he is finally at a point where he's usable. I've played him and seen him played in previous editions, where he's gone through the ringer of being lower defense, lower attacks, lower wounds. He's gone through every edition of it. To finally be 3 attacks and 3 wounds, and retain strike, which a lot of other heroes similar to him did not retain, I think is what makes him such a high value model now. He's also 90 points for a Hero of Valor, which you're only paying 30 more points to get the extra model slots. And I think if you're someone who's built a list and has filled out all your warband slots with Ugluk and Mauher and Vrasku, and have 50 points spare or something like that, I think upgrading one of them to Lurtz and bringing a couple of extra guys is a perfect way to fix that as well. I think he just does a little bit of everything in your list, and he's actually at the point now he's a good leader. He can lead an army if you don't want Saruman leading it, and you can feel comfortable knowing you're not stuck with someone like Ugluk leading your force.
So for me, it's very interesting. I think it's a bit tricky on exactly how you do your heroes, because they're all you have a lot of very solid mid options. For me, I think if you're not bringing Saruman, you're bringing Lurtz, is a sort of general rule of thumb, unless you're running one of the legions, obviously, where you can't bring him.
Yeah.
But if Saruman's not your leader, I don't think you want to be having someone like Ugluk or Vrasku. As good as they are in the sort of vacuum, there's too many things that require your leader to either live through a battle or to do stuff.
Yeah.
That you don't really want those 65-point guys being your heroes. So you just bring Lurtz.
Exactly.
And he's perfectly fine at it. Now, the other question is then, if you bring Saruman, do you bring Lurtz? And I think the answer is probably not. They are a solid combo together. Saruman enables Lurtz to be a murder machine because strength 5, 3 attacks. If you can, lock down a bigger hero, he can D7 is a big breakpoint. Strength 5 means he's winning most heroes on 5s.
Yeah.
Where other heroes of a similar caliber would be on only strength 4, so 6s. So it means that Saruman combined with Lurtz can be a very strong combo. But I feel like if you bring both, you don't have enough models, essentially. Because of how expensive Saruman is initially, like the 30-point differential between him and like the 60-point captain heroes is 3 Uruk Hai. And that doesn't sound like a lot, but 3 Uruk Hai is a lot. It just is.
It can swing games.
Or it can be, 5 orcs, or 2 Warg Riders and an Uruk Hai. It can be a lot of different things that can make a big difference. And the point is that just with how points work out, I think at 650, Saruman Lurtz works pretty well, just because of how warbands break down. You can't really bring a third warband, so Saruman Lurtz is kind of what you have to do. But it also depends generally. Like 750, you probably would not bring Lurtz, you just bring another captain and fill out his warband.
Yeah.
And at below 650, you just can't afford to bring like Lurtz. Unless you really want to go low numbers. And I think with Saruman, because you want a longer game so he gets value because spellcasters are safe and long term.
Yeah, you need more pikes
you want more models that can just not die as opposed to a slightly stronger hero, in my opinion.
I definitely agree. Yeah. I think if you're going the lower end of points, I think Vrasku, who we'll talk on soon, is one of those heroes you'd replace with Lurtz, I think.
Eventually. At a certain point break. Essentially, if you have no warband space but you have points left over, you upgrade to Lurtz.
Yeah,
essentially is how it goes. With that being said, let's talk about the nice and cheap heroes. So our next named captain, Chris, take it away.
Yes, Mr. Ugluk himself. So he is a Uruk Hai Isengard infantry hero of Fortitude, and for 65 points, he gets movement 6, fight 5, 4+, which doesn't do anything, strength 5, defense 5, 2 attacks, 2 wounds, coach 4. He is a 3/1/1 for his Might Will Fate, and equipped with an armor and sword. Now, he's got March, Strike, and Strength as his heroics, and he has a fantastic special rule called Head Taker. So, if Ugluk's force is broken, Ugluk can choose to kill a nearby model instead of taking Courage Test. So choose any friendly warrior model within 2 inches of Ugluk. That doesn't even have to be an Orc or Uruk Hai or anything. It can be a 5-point Wildman for all it cares. And that model is removed as a casualty. Ugluk then automatically passes his Courage Test, and Standfast for hero and warrior models also automatically pass within 12 inches of him. It's a really, really cool special rule because you can use this rule right then and there. You use it at the start of his, when he takes that courage check, or when he would be taking it, and the buff just goes off. It doesn't require him to do anything else. It doesn't require him to stay within 12 inches. It just happens in that 12-inch bubble, and then he can go and do whatever he wants the rest of the turn. This is a wonderful profile to assist in leading a force, but I don't think he is a very good leader of a force. There's a Legendary Legion, which is built around him being the leader of it. I think that's probably the biggest limiting factor in it, is that there's no big hero to take the punches for the Legion. And I think with him being the leader, it's a beautiful example of models that would be phenomenal if they had the Lurtz treatment of 3 attacks, 3 wounds.
Look, Ugluk, he's very good. But the problem is he's in a list with like 3 other very good heroes at his exact same points cost.
And they all outclass him just a little bit.
Just like, in any other list, like Ugluk would be like, yeah, I'm taking Ugluk every game.
I take 6 of him. Yeah.
I'd take 6. Yeah. But you're like, oh, I've also got Vrasku, and I've also got Mauher, and I've also got Lurtz. And it's like, it's very tricky to fit Ugluk in. But it also just depends on what exactly your list is doing. Obviously, in his Legion, you have to take him, and in his Legion, he serves a great purpose because it's a Courage 3 horde.
Yeah.
Which is like, you need a way to not flee.
Exactly, yes.
And you need your lots of heroes that are also only Courage 4 to not flee.
Yeah, and your 6-point orcs with spears are wonderful little, I've killed you and now I have a 12-inch bubble of my army's fearless again.
Exactly.
And ironically enough, I don't think it's intended for it, but this rule actually means that you are fearless for the whole turn, which means you pass your... you pass your terror test once you're broken.
Nope. It says he passes his Courage test and he has a 12-inch stand fast.
He will automatically pass his courage test and
he has a 12-inch stand fast.
Ah, so he would pass it automatically then. He would become fearless.
No, his courage test for being broken.
Oh, lame. That'd be so good if it was.
No, that would be insane.
That'd be fantastic.
That'd be psychotically good. No. He just gets he kills a guy and then he's treated as essentially having Saruman's rule. He essentially gets the voice of Kunia.
Yeah. Which I think leads me on to a great question of, would you bring this model with a Saruman?
No, bring Vrasku because he's too good.
That's also true. Yeah.
This is the problem with every other hero. It's not Vrasku. Is I can just bring Vrasku with Saruman, and they have such a great synergy inherently. He has such a good synergy with how I want to play the game. I think that you could definitely make an argument for bringing Ugluk.
Yeah.
I don't think that it would be wrong to bring him over Vrasku, but for how I like to play and how I build my lists, I'm never not taking Vrasku as my second hero. Maybe I'd take Ugluk as my third, depending on points, but I also might just take Mauher with a warband of scouts.
Yeah.
This is the problem. Like, Ugluk is my like third or fourth choice.
And just gets outshined by too much.
Yeah, like that's the thing. There's just so many other good options in this list, like for those sort of mid-range heroes.
Yeah, definitely.
That as good as Ugluk is, and he is good, and I would argue, yeah, you can take him, and I wouldn't say you're making a mistake by doing so, except that you are. But you know, in the context of how I play and lists I'm building, I'm just always taking Vrasku as my second, and then as my third, Ugluk or Mauher. It's a toss-up. If I want some scouts, I'll obviously take Mauher because making the move 8 is really good. But if I just am going to run more warriors, then I'd probably bring Ugluk. I think that's the toss-up. If you want to bring a bunch of scouts, you're obviously going to bring them with Mauher. If you're going to just bulk out more warriors, then you'd bring Ugluk. That's, I think, the pretty straight way of it.
Yeah, I think that's more or less correct, yeah.
Cool. All right, well, let's talk about not an Uruk Hai, but Sharku. So he's a 50-point orc who is also Isengard keyword, which is important.
Yeah.
He's infantry, hero of fortitude. He's a move of 6, fight of 4, strength of 4, defense of 5, 2 attacks, 2 wounds, and courage 3. Just an orc captain, basically. 3/1/1, so he does have the extra might over just a generic captain. He has armor and a riding dagger. His riding dagger is a special kind of dagger. Essentially, whenever a hero attacks Sharku, so a hero model in base contact with them tries to strike him, if they fail to wound, Sharku gets to make 1 strength 4 strike against the model. So you've just rolled 3 attacks, or you know what? You knocked him prone. You rolled 6 attacks against my Sharku, and you low rolled. You rolled only 1 wound. I'm just gonna roll 5 strength 4 hits, boss.
Yeah. And low wound all those as well.
I wounded all those, and your Aragorn's dead. So that's a pretty solid rule. I mean, okay, realistically, it's not actually that good a rule, but it's comedically powerful in theory. Finally, for heroic actions, he has a march. Good. And he can bring a Warg and a shield. So he's just an orc captain with a Warg and a shield. I think you should probably just bring a Warg and a shield in him every time. I don't see why you wouldn't. Makes him 65 points. Makes him pretty decent.
Yeah.
He's nothing amazing, but he's not bad.
Yeah, I think he feels a cavalry captain, which is wonderful for the list. But again, he's in the wrong army, I think. If he was in... If Dunland had its own army and they had him as just a profile, phenomenal, right?
Yeah, a 3-might mounted guy with March is just a solid thing to have.
Yeah, but I think the fact that you can bring other 65-point heroes that are named and do something different, instead of just being, if I'm losing the game, I strike you back, I think that he doesn't quite do enough in this list. That being said, I mean, a cavalry model that is a hero will always have value. And a 3/1/1 cavalry hero with the ability to get those kills and combats through, especially if you can use them on a flank, is always going to be value. So, whilst he's not my favourite, he's definitely still a high-value model, I think, within the list.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. Not much to say about him. He's just a captain.
Yeah.
All right, Chris, take it away with the best model on the list.
Vrasku himself, yes. So, 65 points, Uruk Hai Isengard infantry hero. He is a hero of fortitude. And he is a move 6, fight 5, 3+ shoot value. Let's talk about that a bit later. Strength of 5, defense of 5, 2 attacks, 2 wounds, courage of 4. And he is a 3/1/1, Might War Fate, with armor, sword, and a crossbow. Now, this crossbow, it's not just any normal crossbow. This is what we call a big boy crossbow, because it has expert shot. The only crossbow in the entire game that does. And to accompany that, he can take accuracy and march through his heroic actions into the game. Like, this guy actually just does everything and kills other captains shooting, and then walks into combat and kills them in combat as well.
Oh, cool. You're playing a defense 5 army. My shooting guy wins you on 4s.
Yeah, like, what? Or you're playing a defense 6 line. It's still crossbows. It's pumping you on 5s back. And you're probably not going to be able to hurt him back on the same roll, let alone the other Uruk Hai crossbows around him. Like, he is phenomenal for what he brings to the game.
Yeah, I don't know, man. For 65 points, it's hard to think of a better hero at this points level. Like, it's just insane. Like, the fact that he does so much in shooting and then also can pump good damage in combat, and the fact that he brings you march and he brings you accuracy, which in the context of the list you're running him in my opinion, is a pretty solid.
Really big.
Like, accuracy isn't the best heroic action, doesn't come up that often, but like, you know, you just like compel someone slightly back, call an accuracy, and just like Like their banner, oh cool, your banner's not in, you haven't self-chopped your banner. I'm gonna compel your banner back 1 inch, call an accuracy, and shoot every single crossbow in my list at him.
Yeah.
And it's just gonna kill your banner. And like, okay, yep, that's pretty good.
And there's just not much your opponent can do about it either. That's the worst part. Like,
Yeah,
there's
exactly.
literally just not much they can do.
If you're building a list around Saruman and Vrasku to be shooting heavy, there's just very few armies that are gonna match you. Maybe some elf armies, that's about it.
Yeah. I think an elf army or maybe something like a Dale list with enough bows to punch back, or a blinding light Gondor maybe.
The issue for Dale is their D4, they just get gunned down in the
Exactly.
street.
That's the problem. Yeah. Like, whilst Dale brings the slightly cheaper bow shots, they also bring defense 4 bow shots, which means even strength 2 bows do a number on them as well.
Yeah.
So I think this is one of the best pointed models in the entire game in terms of just sheer value. Maybe he should be 70 points or 75, but
70 or 75, then there'd be a discussion for the other characters, essentially. Because, like, you could just look at him as, like, he's almost the same profile as Ugluk for the same points, except he's got a 2-shot crossbow.
yeah, like, the question is, do you want a machine gun or do you want strike? Like,
The answer is I want a machine gun.
yeah,
Plus,
like, every time. Exactly. Because that forces the striker to take a wound before combat meets. And then one cold roll later, you win the game.
And, like, you don't really... Like, a 2-attack guy striking is never that scary.
No, it really isn't. It's only comboed with 4 other models that he'll make a difference.
Yeah.
And at that point, you've done enough to be winning the game regardless. Like, your opponent might cold roll the fight
Or
initially anyway.
you've just channeled and transfixed them with your Saruman.
Exactly,
And you just
yeah.
fight too.
Or even better, you've Sork Blasted and charged.
You Sword Blasted him prone, and you just put Vrasku and you go, cool. Are you going to call a defensive strike? Oh, cool. You won. Okay.
Cool.
Let's do it again next turn.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm not taking any wounds. And Vrasku's going to club you with his crossbow without burning weight. And if you lose that fight,
There's a good
gonna-
chance you die, or take wounds at least, right?
him and 2 pikes behind him, that's a lot of attacks
Exactly.
and very high strength. He's just going to club you over the head.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just scary model.
Yeah, and I think this is what we're talking about. This is that model that kind of really hones the Saruman gameplay into something that goes from good to truly terrifying. And I think this next model we're about to talk about is the only other model that I'd call an auto-include model into certain list building elements. And this is Mauher.
Yeah, so Mauher. For 60 points, you get an Uruk Hai, Isengard, Infantry, Hero of Fortitude. Movement of 8. Spicy. So
What? Movement 8?
correct. He's an infantry model that moves 2 inches extra. He's pretty good. Strength 5, defense 5. His other big calling card, 3 attacks. Always solid to have 3 attacks. For 60 points at strength 5, that's really good.
Yeah.
He also has 2 wounds and courage 4. That's pretty average. He's only 2-1-1, so not as much might. To me, this is what pushes Vrasku over him in general lists. But he has armor and 2 swords. He has heroic march and heroic strength. Heroic strength, nah. I mean, again, combo with Saruman, you knock someone prone, if they overfight than you anyway, you
go
put
for
him
the
in.
strength 6 to get the 4s
You
or
call
3s.
strength
Yeah.
6, yeah, it's not the worst, but also he's only 2 might. It's not... His just strength is never, like, the best. Compared to accuracy, I think accuracy has more use cases, again, and I think that sort of pushes Vrasku up.
Yeah.
However, the thing that makes Mauher actually worth taking is, if your army includes Mauher, any number of Uruk Hai Scouts in his warmen can be upgraded to become Marauders at the cost of 1 point per model. Marauders have a move of 8. So, you can make your baseline troops at strength 4, fight 4, and also probably with a bunch of bows, move 8.
8, yes.
So basically, you can get some of the best, line shooters in the game, or you can get some of the best skirmishers in the game.
And they now fill the role of flank strike infantry, because now they move 8 inches instead of 6. And they're the ones tying up the corners and doing the trap cities and all the rest of it. Like, this model is what enables Uruk Hai Scouts to really be offensive in the game today. I think there's not many models in the game outside of Mauher. Gildor is the only one that I can really think of that take a baseline profile and fundamentally change it into a way that can hard carry games. And that's purely because of taking things slightly better than what they're normally like. And I think the movement 8 value on any model going movement 6 to 8 is just such an overwhelmingly crippling thing to go into if you aren't ready to deal with it, especially if they can get beside you and behind you, that it just takes you out of the game in 2 turns. It's phenomenal.
It just means you play a game fundamentally different to your opponent. Like, your opponent literally can't charge you unless you let them. If they're playing like an infantry line,
Yeah,
your
literally.
opponent literally can't charge you unless you let them.
Yeah, and if you're playing Uruk Hai Scouts, you probably have enough Uruk Hai Scout bows to never let them charge.
bring
Anyway,
like
and
12
you never want to charge.
And if you bring a drummer, you literally
Digs
move.
up, yeah.
You can half move further than dwarves can full move.
Yeah.
They literally if you're playing as the dwarf punt, you can just walk up to him and say, "Let's go get lunch, boss."
It's terrifying the fact they can actually just do that to people, yeah. Like, there's just not much they can do about it unless you make mistakes. And I think that is even more of the reason why Mauher works so well in a scout list. Personally, I absolutely love the idea of the Lurtz's Legendary Legion, because you just get move 8 list-wide.
Same with Ugluks.
Ugluk, you lose it on the Orc side, which is... it's not the end of the world, but it's annoying. It means you can get caught, basically.
Yes.
But it's still really good, so...
For sure. With that, let's talk about Thrydan Wolfsbane. Take it away, Chris.
So, Thrydan. He is a man, Dunlending, infantry hero of fortitude. And for 85 points, you get movement 6, fight 5, 4+, strength 5, defense 5, 2 attacks, 2 wounds, courage 4. And he is 3/2/2. So he's actually a little bit more survivable than most other models in this legion. In the list, sorry. He has armor, a sword, and a 2-handed axe as well. So he can do all the fancy strikes and can even 2-hand to get that fancy strength 7 and even strength 8 if you're willing to
effective strength 8. Effective strength 8.
It's phenomenal, right? Now, you know what would make effective strength 8 slightly better? A 10-point horse. That would make it slightly better.
Do you know what would make it even better?
Oh, this thing called Mighty Blow.
If it did 2 wounds every
hit. So, Thrydan has Mighty Blow, but unlike most other models that have this rule, it's not attached to a weapon, which means your sword has Mighty Blow. Your armor probably has Mighty Blow. When you get disarmed and punch someone, you have Mighty Blow.
I'm trying to think. Who else has... So, the Knight of the White Tower has it on his sword. Who else has Mighty Blow, even? It's a very rare rule.
Well, there's a few, like, Bane models out there.
Bane is
D3
stuff. That's weapon tied.
Yeah, like Monster Bane, Troll Bane.
It's Orc Bane, Troll Bane, Goblin Bane, whatever else.
Like, those sort of ones as well.
Whatever Orcist has.
Yeah. Well, as well as, like, Dwinhere can do the D3 against monsters.
True. There's a few of those.
There's a few little bits and pieces, but the big ones that come to mind are this guy and the Knight of the White Tower.
And Knight of the White Tower, it's stuck on his sword, so his dagger doesn't get it. Whereas Thrydan, he stabs you with the sword, 2 damage.
2 damage for no reason. Now, the only downside to that is, as far as I understand, it still can be blocked with 1 fate save.
Correct.
So, whilst it is upsetting that is the way it still works, it does just mean that if you're fighting a 2-wound model, that you just, like, every single time this guy wounds, you have a chance of flash killing the model. And that is kind of terrifying.
Or if it's a multi-wound with no fate.
Exactly.
2 wounds to a troll.
You're just chipping them off straight off the bat.
Cave Troll takes 2 wounds from him, 1 Uruk Hai smacks, dead.
Yeah, dead, right?
It just, like, it reduces the amount of swings you need to get in on everything.
Yeah. And at effective strength 8, there's not much in the game that's going to survive 6 strikes from him if he knocks you over.
Yep.
Yeah.
Means you only need to get through things to get through, and you just kill something, yeah.
Tell you what, this is the one model I'll let someone do a heroic strength against.
Strength 10 effective, let's go. Anyone feel like
you could get strength 11 effective, right?
Well, it's better because you can go to 2s to wound,
exactly.
as opposed to... So you go to strength 6 plus 3, you go to strength 9, you can wound pretty much anything on 2s. Like, short of literally Dwarf Lords and, like, Lords of the West.
Yeah. You'd be tapping Smaug on 3s.
He's D9?
Yeah. 8 or 9.
No, 9 you wouldn't do on 3s. Oh, no, you would.
You would do on 3s.
Sorry, I was thinking 2s. My bad. I was thinking 2s. No, you could do Smaug on 3s.
Yeah.
You can do... I mean, you could do Thorin on 2s. No, 6, 9. No, you can't do 2s on Thorin.
Yeah.
You can do 2s on D7 heroes.
Yeah.
But you can do... And then 3s on everything else.
Yeah. How good's that?
That's insane. And also, 12-inch standfast.
Yes.
Which is nice, because Dunlendings don't get the Isengard keyword, which means if you're running Dunland, you're taking courage checks to 50%.
Yes. Now, my one qualm with this model, he has the special rule that gives him the 12-inch standfast called the Lord of Dunland.
Mm-hmm.
Dunland apparently has a lord that's a hero of fortitude. Like, what's going on, guys?
It is what it is.
Official Clown Town is what it is. I think they just didn't want Lurtz to be... I think they wanted Lurtz to be the leader outside of Saruman. And so they forced him down a tier, and that was the reasoning for it.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. There's a couple other funky ones like that.
Yeah.
I mean, what's his name? Earl is a legendary hero of Valor.
Of Valor, yeah. I think it's fantastic.
It is what it is. No, Thrydan's great. I mean,
Yes.
only like a Loon Dog downside. He's quite expensive for just the 2-attack guy.
Yeah.
That's about it. Like, you could argue, but, 95 points with a horse, it's still pretty solid. He's not as reliable as you'd maybe like a 95-point hero to be. Like, you can take loads for 5 points more.
5 points less. If you're
With
looking at
horse,
one
it's 5 point
yeah.
less. Off of horse, it's 5 points more.
Yeah.
So, like, there is definitely an argument there. Lurtz gets a lot. He gets an extra attack base. He gets an extra wound base. So, there's competition with Thrydan against Lurtz mainly.
I think they just do very different things.
They do. They have very different roles to fill, but you're looking at the same points, and you're kind of, like, thinking, well, is Lurtz just generically more useful if I'm not trying to, like, character assassinate with Thrydan?
Yeah.
And maybe Lurtz is still good enough at that it doesn't matter, but he's still a very solid profile. Very much worth taking.
Yeah, definitely.
All right. Onto the characters you will never take, because we've just talked about 7 really good named heroes. So first up, the Uruk Hai Captain. In any other list, I'd be like, yeah, fantastic model.
Well, half trolls are just really useful, to be fair. Yeah.
No, that's the next profile.
Yeah.
He's higher defense than a half troll.
Well, only with the shield, come on.
So Uruk Hai Captain for 60 points. 60 points. Like, he's already the same points.
As
with,
Mauher.
with one upgrade, he's the same points as a Vrasku.
Yeah.
With no upgrades, he's the same points as, 3 attack guy. So, yeah, 60 points. Uruk Hai, Isengard, Infantry, Hero, Fortitude, Move of 6, Fight of 5, Strength of 5, Defense of 6, 2 attacks, 2 wounds, Courage 4, 2-1-1. So already you just look at Mauher, and trading 1 point of defense for 1 point of attack is already worth it. An attack is worth way more points than 1 point of defense.
Exactly.
And
also,
also
then you get the move
special.
8.
Yes,
Yeah.
and you get move 8 as well, and you also get to upgrade guys. Same actions with March, just March. Heavy armor sword. You can bring a crossbow, a shield, or a two-handed weapon. If you bring a crossbow, why don't you just bring a Vrasku? If you bring a shield, why don't you just bring Lurtz? Or, Thrydan, or, even just Ugluk for, like, just a generic fighty guy.
Yeah.
If you bring a two-handed weapon, I don't know what you're doing.
You're winning the game.
You are
that's what you're
psychotic.
doing.
Something is wrong with you.
Something has gone very wrong in life, yeah.
And that's it. And now let's talk about the half troll profile. So tell us, what does a half troll do?
Yes, so half troll. This one, it's worded weirdly, but it says Uruk Hai, Isengard, Infantry, Hero, Fortitude. It's weird, it says 55, not 23 points as well, but it's move 6, fight 5, 4+, strength 5, defense 5, 2 attacks, 2 wounds, courage 4. So the courage 4 is actually a little bit better than half troll, so there you go. Yeah, maybe there's a reason to bring this guy once in a blue moon. 2-1-1 for the Might Will Fate, armor and sword. He has the march. He cannot bring the crossbow and swaps it out for a bow instead. He can bring a shield or a two-handed weapon. This is the only captain I won't bring a two-handed weapon on because the two-handed weapon sculpt looks cool. That's all I have to say about it.
If it was an axe, I'd say yes. It's not an axe, though. It's lame.
Yeah. Look. Both
Play
of
another
these-
5 points.
Yeah. Both of these captains get outshone by everything that is named in this list. Just like the way it happens with Mordor, just like the way it happens with Gondor, just like the way it happens with all the big four. And even, to an extent, some of the Elven lists now are starting to get outshined by some of the more named things like Rivendell.
I think it's very rare that if you have a named character that has March, that you'd ever bring a captain. That's just true of pretty much every list in the game. Because named characters usually cost slightly more for a lot more extra.
Exactly.
Like, inherently, they're like usually like 5 points more than the unnamed guy, and they get +1 might pretty much always.
Yeah.
And that's already paying for itself, and then you usually get 2 special rules attached, or 1 special or an extra heroic.
Exactly.
And it's like, why would you ever just bring a captain? And the answer is because you're playing Legendary Legion where you have to, and that's about it.
Yeah. I really do wish that captains were the only models in the game that retained March. Like, that would really change the way that lists are built, and really change the value that people, I think, are placing on March. I don't know if it's a good thing, I don't know if it's a bad thing, but I'd love to see that happen.
It's hard. I just think, yeah, maybe it's very interesting. Like, you can make arguments. It's a design decision. Do you want captains to be in the game, or do you just want everyone to run all named?
Yeah.
Inherently, there's nothing wrong with named heroes being better. As a design issue, the only reason I would say it's a problem is because there's lists that don't have named characters, and then it really feels bad. And there's even some lists that have a load of named characters, and then there's no one with March who's unnamed. Who's named, sorry. Like, for example, Lake Town has a ton of named heroes, all of whom are pretty good, but I have to bring a captain because I need March. Whereas,
And I think that is what would fill this perfectly. It forces people off of the named hero spam that seems so prevalent with the 3-1-1 formula that Games Workshop has. I think it would change it just enough where you don't always see the same cookie cutter lists, and if people aren't bringing the unnamed captains for the March, then suddenly there's a tool. Yes, they have better stat blocks, or yes, they have that extra rule like the Mauher's Marauder rule or something like that, but there's other things that they're missing, which is that critical bit of extra movement in the turns that's vital for.
yeah, exactly. It would make it a decision rather than just like, I'm bringing Vrasku every
Exactly.
single game. Like,
Or I'm bringing the Mauher's Scouts Legion, I've got all 4 named heroes, so it's time to bring an Uruk Hai Captain.
yeah, exactly. But it is what it is. On to our next model.
Slightly more useful, to be fair.
Is it? Is it really?
For one thing alone.
Fury?
Yeah. I think it's the only reason this model is valued.
Yeah, but also, you don't break till still 33%, and you have Saruman, who's 12-inch, and you have Ugluk, who can 12-inch, and you have...
I think the reason why a shaman works... So, run the profile, then we'll talk.
Profile, 450 points. You get an Uruk Hai Isengard Infantry Hero, Minor Hero, for Movement 6, Fight of 4, Strength of 4, Defense of 4, 1 attack, 2 wounds, Courage 4, 1 might, 3 will, 1 fate. He gets a spear, which is funky.
Only spear in the list.
It's true. That's not true. He can bring lots of spears, boss.
Dang. Yeah.
And with heroic actions, he gets Heroic Channel. He can bring Armor for 5 points to be Defense 5. And he brings Fury, Isengard Uruk Hai with a range of 6 on a 3+. And Transfix with a range of 12 on a 5+. Alright, Chris, justify this man.
Okay. So, not only do you get a cool naked dude if you only pay the 50 points, right?
Sure.
But you also get the ability to call Fury. And I think 9 times out of 10 with the Isengard list, calling Fury won't make a huge difference, right? But if your list building is one that's gone for a more horde-heavy build, for example, bringing something that's done like Mauher, Ugluk, and Lurtz, let's say, as your 3 heroes, right? And you've done those 3 heroes, and you're another 80, 90 points, but you filled all your warbands, that's when the Shaman becomes a really clutch add-in, because it now gives you the chance, in the few games you need to spam that Fury across your line. Or, even better, in games where you don't need to, just, if someone's going in for a strike off against Ugluk or something like that, just before it happens, 1 dice transfix, did it work? Oh, it's a 5. What are you going to do about that now, buddy? You're going to waste 2 will and a might point even? He adds to the list in a way that's complementary. I agree, if you bring Saruman, he's pretty obsolete, because you don't want to charge anyway. You want to be sitting there in your crossbow line and just waiting for people to hit you, and then laughing when you have 3 dice because you have 2 pikes and a banner standing next to the line. But in lists where you're looking to be more offensive, which is why I think like a Mauher, Ugluk, Lurtz list works really well, where you're diving into the spam of the I'm moving fast with bows, and you're not playing Vrasku and you're not playing crossbow city stuff, then I think this model starts to show value more. I don't think you can take him... Oh, you can take him in the Legendary Legion. Yeah.
Let's have a look.
For the siege weapon.
Oh, that one. Yeah.
You can bring him in that, and so for sheer virtue of the bomb itself, he's valuable. There you go.
Yeah, Scouts can't bring him. Hey, listen. In a world where Legendary Legions doesn't exist,
Yeah.
maybe. The problem is, if you're in that list you described, you're either running Lurtz Scouts or you're running Ugluk Scouts, in which case, you can't bring him. And then if you're not running Legendary Legion, you're probably running Saruman, and if you're running Saruman, you don't bring him.
Yeah.
So basically, in a different world, he might be useful. In the world we live in, he's literally not great, but usable.
Yeah. I think there's so little that you'd ever want to use him for that he loses most of his value. Yeah, he's a Fury Shaman, and all Fury Shamans have a role in the game in the right lists. But the same way that Dragon Emperor lists aren't running a Fury Shaman as well, because they're just better things you can do with your points. I think this is the same sort of thing.
Yes. And with that, let's get on to the biggest, strongest hero of them all, the Uruk Hai Drummer. For 35 points, Chris, what does he do?
Well, what he doesn't do is move through woodland terrain. With that out of the way, he's an Uruk Hai Isengard infantry hero, an independent hero for 35 points. He has movement 6, fight 4, 4+ shoot fire, strength 4, defense 5, 1 attack, 1 wound, courage 4, 0 might, 0 will, but 1 fate. Huge. He has armor, dagger, and a war drum Isengard Uruk Hai.
So, do you want to move 11 inches with infantry? You got to move 14 inches with infantry.
Because he called a march, yeah. It's fantastic. But do you know what really does suck? He doesn't have woodland creature.
You know what's great though? He still moves 7.
Yeah. It's just... Why?
Actually, yeah.
Why does he not have it? It's such a silly oversight.
Actually, does the Scout Legion give everyone in it?
Okay, so in the Scout Legion he gets it.
No, he doesn't.
Scout Drummers?
Oh, does it?
Yeah, right there.
No, that's 8-inch move.
Oh,
Woodland
but he doesn't...
creature. Friendly models game Woodland creature.
Okay, yeah, so they do get it. Yeah. Okay.
Oh, even the Orcs get it. That's pretty good.
Yeah, nice. But like, yeah, why does he not have it? It's just so silly that he doesn't have woodland creature. He's phenomenal. Okay, look, upsides of him, right? it literally is 50% increase to your movement all the time until you need until you need combat time, right? It means that if you have Mauher's Raiders, Marauder, you're moving literally 5 inches further than your opponents are moving. It's almost their full movement extra. And if you want to spam that one march, you can literally shoot and move further than your opponent can move.
I mean, you move 5.5. Like I said, you literally outrun dwarves.
Yeah, literally.
Yes. Yeah, so overall pretty solid. I think in a pure scout-based list, you can bring him. I think if you're running the scouts list and you don't have, like if you're running Ugluks, you know, a bunch of orcs, you probably don't want to run it. Like there's some tricks you can do with movement in that list, but they don't involve him.
Yeah.
They involve, the main one, and we'll talk about it when we get to Legion, is calling a march so that, and then moving it after so that your Uruk Hai charge 8, and then your spears move 9, and you can't charge when you march, but you can spear support when you march.
Exactly, yes.
That's the main trick, and he doesn't contribute to that because he only hits Uruk Hai Isengard.
Yeah.
If there was something in the Legion that let him hit the orcs, then maybe, but there isn't, so there's no point.
Yeah.
That's essentially it. I think Lurtz Scouts, he has a place because it's just pure Uruks.
It's just pure benefits, yes.
Yes.
But I think if you were to drop something out of the Legion, I think he would be the most obvious drop, yeah.
Alright, so next up we have the Dunlending Chieftain, 455 points, man Dunlending infantry, hero of fortitude. He brings armor, dagger, and a two-handed axe. He has heroic march because he's captain. He can bring a bow for 5 points and a two-handed axe instead of his shield for free. Other way around. Anyway, look, you know what? He's okay. The problem is the same problem as every other captain in this list, but at least he exists in a separate list where he might have a purpose.
Yes. I will say, though, he is only fight 4, which isn't as good, but being the strength 5 still with axes means that he can still do the damage output. His lower fight value sucks compared to Uruk Hai, but I think, yeah, in the Dunland list, this guy makes miracles happen because he just does so much for what the list can do, basically. And so when you look at this model right now in isolation, that fight 4, strength 5, it's okay, it's fine, it's not winning awards, it's fine. But I think it's when you combo him with other stuff that he really starts to shine in the Dunland list.
Yeah, like I said, has a place in Dunland, doesn't have a place in Isengard.
Yeah.
On to a man out of the water. Tell us about Snaga, Chris.
Snaga, yes. So, Snaga is a Orc Captain for 50 points. He's Orc Mortar Infantry Hero, Hero of Fortitude. He is a move 6, fight 4, 5 plus shoot, doesn't come up. Strength of 4, defense 5, 2 attacks, 2 inch, coach 3, 3-1-1. And he has armor and a sword. Now, this is where he gets weird. He's a Hero of Fortitude with Challenge, which means you can slingshot him around into other unnamed captains and probably be the same fight value as them to call your challenge into. It's a weird rule to have on him, but I think there's a few spaces where he could actually find this rule useful. His other special thing that he has going for him, he has 2 of them actually. So, one of them is just a bad thing. Snaga may only have orcs in his warband, which means even in a generic Isengard list, he has to bring orcs with him, unless he's running him on his own, which you probably don't want to do because you can bring a captain that does the same thing but better. But, Cunning Minds. This is the rule that's good. So, Snaga can choose when heroic action happens near him to take part in it or not. And if he does want to take part in the heroic move, he does not adhere to the same constraints as that model does for staying within the 6 inches. He can just walk the other direction. He can do anything he wants with his move if he gets to move on someone else's heroic move. The only weird thing is that if he calls the heroic move himself, he doesn't really get the benefit of it. So it's a sometimes really nice rule. Most of the time, doesn't make a huge difference though, because if you're calling a move, you typically want your army to move uniformly. The only reason I think that it'd be different is if you wanted to bring your standfast across the board further. Stuff like that.
You're the only person who would talk about challenge first about this model.
What? Yeah, okay, fair enough.
You are literally the only person, like, to most people, they just see heroic actions, none.
Yeah. Heroic actions, move.
Yeah. Combat, move, that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah, look, I think he's decent. Like, he has a place. Like, the Cunning Mind rule lets you be cheeky and sneaky with him. But it's also on a model that's just not that threatening inherently because it's just a fight for captain with no strike, nothing else going on.
Yeah. That being said, though, if he was built in with other stuff,
he'd be very, very strong.
Exactly. Like, if he was 60 points and an Uruk Hai profile, fight 5, strength 5.
And had that same rule? Yeah, very, very powerful.
I would no longer play you with Isengard.
Yeah, he'd almost challenge Vrasku.
Like, with a rule like that on a better profile, I think he would.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's a very solid rule to have.
Exactly, yeah.
So, next up, another man who's solid. Built solid, even. Gorulf Ironskin, 470 points. We get the first of our new Dunland heroes. The man Dunlending Infantry, Hero of Fortitude. Move value of 6, fight value of 5 with a shoot plus a 4+. Strength 5, defense 5. 3 attacks, yes! And this man's got axes!
Yeah!
He's got 2 wounds, courage of 4, 3/1/1, armor, 2 axes and a dagger, so he can feint or he can axe. And also, this man is just shatter immune.
Yeah, literally.
You're going to shatter him 3 times to disarm him. Finally, for actions, he's got strike, strength, and defense. So, a good set of actions. But his special rule, Iron Skin, is where he really shines. If at the start of the fight phase, Gorulf is engaged with an enemy hero model, he may declare a free heroic defense without spending might. And then he can immediately declare his fucking pierce, because he doesn't care, boss.
Yeah, literally. I think that's the thing that makes this model really good, is the free piercing strike every time you call a defense. Because your defense is so low anyway, you don't care. And so, like, because usually if you're a high defense model and call a defense, and then you piercing strike, that might take it from a 6/6 to just a 6, right? But on this model, you're probably being wounded on a 5 anyway. So going to the heroic defense and then piercing strike, there's no reason ever not to. It is insane. And it basically just means that your opponent, if it's a hero going into them, they're always going to be scared a little bit. Because on the odd chance that they stuff up a roll, or he manages to outmight you.
I mean, he's still fight 5. He's still just good.
Right? Yeah.
You're going to strike into my heroic defense, boss? Go for it. Cool. Yeah. I don't care.
And that's the thing. Even better, I think this model is one of the best captain assassins in the game.
Yes, you shove this guy into any fight 4 or fight 5 captain and you go, good luck, boss. You're about to get chomped.
Yeah, exactly. And I think if you can slingshot him with another one of the heroes and get the free defense and then combat out into like a troll or something like that, that's even better. Because now you're getting the free stats on even bigger things as well.
Yeah, and just like, the fact is, he also has strike. And he is a scary strike character.
Yes. One of the scariest. And that's the flexibility.
For his points, for 70 points, it's pretty hard to think of a scarier like character. Like, Mauher is similar, but no strike. Yeah. And that's about it. Like, there's very few 3 attack, strength 5 characters at this points level.
None of them are going to challenge you in any real way anyway, right? Like, you will brute force through.
The Chonka.
But, like, this model just does a lot for the list. Yes. Especially in the Dunland Legendary Legion is where he shines the most. I think this model and the next one we're about to talk about are 2 that fundamentally change how your opponent wants to play the game. Because usually you put a defense 7 hero into a model like this, or defense 8 hero into it, and just hope they live 2 turns whilst your Aragorn's charging through the backlines, right? A model like this now gets free stats off of that captain that's charged him, and has the luxury of choosing, do I want to call the defense for free, or just go for the strike flash kill and know I can confirm it with other dice around me. He just does a lot for your list. I think that is what makes him go from good to amazing.
Very true. Now, what's our next hero, Chris? Take it away.
Yes, Frida Tallspear. So, she is, for 65 points, a woman, Dunlending Infantry Hero, Hero of Fortitude. She is a move 6, fight 5, 4+, strength 4, defense 6, which is really nice. 2 attacks, 2 wounds, courage 4, 3/1/1, armor, shield, spear, and dagger are her war gear options. Also super duper immune to that.
Just shatter immune list, just in general, hey.
I think that's Dunland in a nutshell for you.
I've got 3 weapons, it is what it is, good luck.
Yeah, she also has heroic defense, phenomenal. And she has heroic strength, I'm going to pretend I didn't read that. And what she actually has is 2 phenomenal rules. So, she has readied stance, which basically means that cavalry models do not gain any perks for charging. They don't get an extra attack. They don't get involved. They don't get knocked down. Knocked to the ground. And that's when she is in combat herself, or if she is spear supporting, which is just insane, right? You can keep her hidden in the second row, and, you know, your King Aleksa has gone tapping into the front of your Gorulf Ironskin, and he gets a free heroic defense, and she comes in and takes away Aragorn's charge bonus. So they're both just 3 attacks going at it. And now you have 6 points of might in the fight because Gorulf hasn't spent any yet. It's insane.
It's very solid.
Yes.
The other rule is also huge, Chris.
Yeah, so Frida and all Dunlending models, inclusive of heroes, within 3 inches of her, can re-roll fail to wound rolls against mounts during the fight phase. Which means just cavalry don't exist against you. It is insane how powerful this rule is, because you have so many models that have strength 5 or axes built into the profile, which means that even armored horses are dropping like flies against these guys. It's amazing.
It's solid. The full rerolls is huge. Play against the Warg list, just kill all his Wargs. He'll die from falling down.
Literally, yeah.
It's true.
Like, yeah, Frida is one of my favorite designed heroes in the entire game at the moment, because what she does changes how you can play the game as Dunland, and it takes you from what is otherwise a not very good army to something that can really force big decisions, and even worse, can just make your opponent not allowed to have decision making. And that is what this model really shines at the most.
Yeah.
So she's phenomenal. Yeah.
She's a very, very, very strong pick. Next up, another solid pick. The Wildman Oathmaker, Chris's favourite man on a mission.
Yes.
For 55 points, you get a man, Dunlending, and Isengard. Ooh, spicy. Infantry, hero of fortitude. Movement of 6, fight value of 4, strength value of 4, defense value of 4. 4s all around. 2 attacks, 2 wounds, courage 4.
Oh, another one. Oh.
Fours.
Might 4?
Unfortunately, we've only got 3 might for you, boss. 1 wound, 1 fate. With a dagger and heroic actions, heroic nothing.
Oh, there's a typo there, actually.
It says heroic strength.
Yeah,
Okay, sorry, my bad. So heroic move and heroic combat.
Yeah.
Special rules, he is fearless. And he has hatred Rohan. That's not that relevant, but fearless, pretty solid. Furthermore, he has We Will Die for Saruman. All Wildmen of Dunland included in the same army as the Wildman Oathmaker gain the Isengard keyword for the duration of the battle. That's pretty good.
It's phenomenal, yeah.
Blood Oath. Friendly Wildmen of Dunland within 6 of the old Oathmaker gain the Fearless rule. That's really good.
Yeah.
So this guy basically takes the biggest downside of including a bunch of Wildmen in your list, which is that they just run away and just are courage 2, and says, nah.
I think this model is one of the coolest models that Games Workshop has done conceptually in quite a while. Taking what is otherwise one of the most lackluster profiles in the entire game as Wildman of Dunland and turning it into something useful, and not only useful, a fearless model within your list, and gives them out the Isengard keyword as well, which means you can actually take them in an Isengard army and not feel like absolute trash about it. It's just phenomenal. Like, I actually love the concept of this model as well. I think, being completely honest, all of the new Dunland heroes are phenomenal designs. Some of the troops of the new Dunland stuff could have been done a bit better, if you ask me, but all of the heroes, phenomenal. To the T.
Oh, yeah,
even Thrydan
definitely.
himself.
I think the Dunland heroes are some of the most cool heroes in the game.
Yeah.
None of them are overwhelmingly strong. None of them are like auto-include in a list power level. But they're just all really interesting designs, and they're really fun to play with, I think.
And there's nothing about any of the heroes, when they're all put together, all 4 of them, so Thrydan and the 3 that we just talked about, that there isn't something... Like, you cover every base in the game, basically, with those 4 heroes.
You don't have much. Sorry, boss.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, you're
That's the real issue.
Yeah.
And that's the very frustrating thing to me about Dunland is you're in the same list as Isengard, where you get all of these just random March heroes, and for the same points, all of these cool Dunland heroes just aren't
marching. Yeah,
just aren't as good inherently because they don't get one of the most generically useful heroic actions in the game.
Yes,
and it's just kind of unfortunate.
But outside of that, and especially in a Dunland list, like realistically, Dunland loves to play the game at around 700 to 800 points. That's when they get a huge bang for the buck, because they can bring all the heroes they want, or the troops they want, and because they're getting benefits off their banners as well, on big bubbles, you want the higher model count, and then you can feel the captain as well, and not feel terrible that you missed out, because realistically, the Oathmaker is the last one of those 4 named heroes that you add.
Look, here's the thing for me with the Oathmaker, I think he's unironically better in Isengard than he is in Dunland. I think
significantly.
I think he'd be my 5th hero. I think I'd take Frida, Thrydan, and Gorulf. Then I'll take a captain. Then I'll take Wildman Oathmaker.
Yeah.
If I'm running Dunland personally,
and that's I think what most people have come to agree on.
To some extent, it's a meta call. You can make a call if there's a lot of terror in your sort of meta. You bring this guy over a captain. You maybe bring this guy over Frida even. I think him and Frida are both meta call characters.
Yeah.
If you're worried about mounted big heroes chomping your lines, you bring Frida. If you're worried about terror lines, you bring Wildman. If you're worried about both, you take the L boss.
Yeah.
But yeah, generally speaking, I think both are sort of like they're techie characters, like especially the Wildman. Like if you play against No Terror ever, he's literally just useless.
But he looks cool.
If you play against No Terror ever, he's literally just useless.
But he looks cool.
He's literally just useless.
But he's so cool.
He is cool.
He's like holding his hand. He's like, dude, fist bump? And then he gets shot and dies.
Yeah. You're like, oh, I'm D4.
Yeah. Oh, what? Dwarf crossbows?
You mean Vrasku?
Yeah. Vrasku and unironically one tap him. Yeah.
Good, actually, it's not even that unlikely.
Who decided machine guns in Lord of the Rings was a good idea?
I don't know, but Legolas exists, so it's not the worst
that's
one.
True, yeah.
Just 3 shots base.
Yeah. Alright, we are going to take a quick break.
And
we will see you.
So we're 21 slides in, and that's halfway.
Don't say that. No.
Yeah, we'll be right back after a short break.
Maybe.
Alright guys, welcome back to the Dicebearers podcast. We've finished all the heroes. Now it's time for the warriors. And we're going to start out with a legend.
Are we?
No, he's actually pretty mediocre overall. But in the legendary legions...
there we go.
There we go.
Wow, worst tangent I've ever had in my life.
So, for 8 points, you've got the Uruk Hai Scout, Uruk Hai Isengard Infantry Warrior, with a movement value of 6, a fight value of 4, a strength value of 4, a defense value of 4. There's just a lot of 4s in this list.
Yeah, dude, it's like him and the Oathmaker, best friends.
1 attack, 1 wound, and courage 3. He can bring armor and a sword. They can also bring a banner for 25 points, an Uruk Hai bow for 1 point, and a shield for 1 point. So, Uruk Hai bows, they are 18-inch strength 3 bows, so a little bit of a trade-off compared to a normal bow. Not quite as good as an elf bow, but they
it's
can
a 4
be.
plus to hit.
It is, and it can also be move 8.
Exactly. And I think, and like the really big thing about these guys is the fact that you can just bring so many of them.
Yes.
Like, you have 65-point heroes. If you bring your 2 65-point heroes, your 60-point hero, and Lurtz leading them, and then just spamming these guys, all at 9 points or 10 of their marauders, you can bring so many models, it's absurd.
At a decent fight at high strength. Yes.
Exactly. At Fight 4. Like, Fight 4 is the magic breakpoint that turns armies from being, you shouldn't rely on your troops, to your troops can reliably win games for you.
Unless it's against elves, but we don't talk about elves.
But even then, like, you'll have the model count to deal with most elves properly.
And the
right?
strength to just smack them.
Or the movement to walk away and shoot them again.
Yeah. There's a lot of things you can do, obviously, and like I think outside of Legendary Legion, Marauder Scouts with bows is a good way to run them. I think you don't want to run them as your main battle line unless you're running the legions, in which case they're all going to be Marauders anyway, in which case you can do kiting shenanigans and you can move too many inches. So, solid profile, especially in the legion, obviously, because it just makes them better for nothing, for free.
Exactly. I think let's jump into our next profile to really compare them to where the Uruk Hai Warrior stands, right? So, for 1 extra point, Uruk Hai Isengard Infantry Warrior. They're all the same stats pretty much. So move 4, 4 plus, shoot value and 4 fight value, strength 4, defense 5, 1 attack, 1 wound, coach 3. So obviously heavy armor and sword turns your defense from 4 to 5. You can bring shields again, which is gonna make you a defense 6 line. Huge. You then get your banner, so same as last time, and this is where your points really start to change. You can bring pikes for 1 point, and you can bring crossbows for 2 points. Now, you can't bring the pike shield or the pike crossbow properly. You lose benefits of doing that and that sort of stuff, which is fine, because pikes are two-handed, unwieldy weapons, whatever. But what you really get out of this profile is 2 huge things. 3 rank fighting on strength 4, and strength 4 shooting. And I think that is what really turns the Uruk Hai Scout into the Uruk Hai Warrior in terms of the debate, right? Because the scouts have the flexibility, and they do what the box says, right? They scout. They're the ones that flank. They're the ones that do the movement shenanigans. But the Uruk Hai Warriors are the ones that will sit there and say, mate, we're 22 inches away and the objective's 10 inches away from me. I'm going to stay still for 3 turns and shoot you. What are you going to do about it?
Yeah, so like warriors, like the difference is 1 point for 1 point of defense, which is pretty standard. But it's the options that make warriors better in a purely fighting list than they do in like a skirmish list.
Exactly.
It's the crossbows and it's the pikes and to some lesser extent the shields. Obviously pikes having the downside is a big deal, but the rest of the list is so strong anyway that it's kind of fine.
Yeah. This is probably one of the best front to back profiles in the entire game, to be completely honest with you. Like, there's very few lists that can walk up against Strength 4, Fight 4, Defense 6 frontline, 3 rank fighting, and hope to come out trading evenly or positively with this list. Because the armies that will fight back with better ranks, like pikes on Easterlings, let's say, yeah, they'll outfight you on the ranks, but they won't kill you. And you'll just mulch through them, especially once you crack shield lines. And like Galadrim Court Pikes, it's even scarier, because they're the only ones that are fight 6s.
There's
the
so many
shields at the
pikes
front row,
going,
you know? And so, like, suddenly, like, you crack the front, and everything dies.
Yeah,
And
for
so,
sure, for sure.
I
And
think,
especially with the other tools as well, things like Berserkers as well,
oh, exactly.
they can really like start to work well together.
Yeah. So I think the Uruk Hai Scout can fill more gaps in the list, but the Uruk Hai Warrior is, rightfully so, the mainstay of what really is a terrifying infantry.
It really is a hammer and anvil profile.
Yeah.
That's the thing.
Literally, yes. Now, onto a slightly odd model in the Isengard list, the Troll.
Yeah, for 110 points, you get a Troll. Isengard, Monster, Infantry, Warrior. Move of 6, Fire value of 7, Strength of 7, Defense of 8, 3 attacks, 3 wounds, and Courage 4 with heavy armor, sword, and shield. It can swap for a spear for free, and it can swap the shield for a war drum for 25 points with Isengard on it, which means everyone gets it, not just Uruk Hai, which the normal drum has.
Yeah.
It also has terror, it has throw stones, it's a standard. Basically, it's the same as a Mordor Troll. You pay 10 extra points, you
10
get
points.
+1 defense, +1 courage, that's it.
No, they're all Coach 4 now.
I thought they were courage 3 on Mordor.
Oh, no.
No, it's the Chieftain that's 4, the Chieftain's 4, the normal ones are 3.
Oh,
Do you want me to start
maybe.
scrolling, boss? I can start scrolling.
No, actually, you might be right, isn't it? That'd explain why it's a 10-point gap, isn't
Yeah.
it? Okay, yeah.
5 points to the D8, 5 points for courage 4.
Yeah. Oh, okay, yeah, that makes sense. Look, I think Trolls are fantastic. Trolls are holistically outclassed by everything else in this list. I think that's the problem for me. There's stuff that a Mordor Troll does really well because you have a whole bunch of 6-point models and 7-point models all around them. There's stuff that an Isengard Troll does when you have 11, 10-point models all around him. It's not quite going to be the same. And on being on such a big base, 60 mil base, you will just get in your own way more than you'll be of your own benefit a lot of the time.
It's also just too many points. Like, it's just too many points in this list. Your base troops are too expensive. The heroes you want to bring can be very expensive, or they can be cheap. But if you bring the cheap ones, you just want to bring a horde of troops because
Exactly.
you're playing the Legion. If you're playing the Legion, you can't bring the Troll anyway. If you're playing Saruman, it's too many points. Like, there is good synergy between him and Saruman, but that's 300 odd points. It is 300 points, actually, exactly. You bring Saruman on a horse plus this guy,
It's
300 point
points.
combo,
Yeah.
and you're like, man, you could just bring, 11 Uruk Hai, and they would still beat the crap out of whatever you've transfixed or sword blasted into the ground.
I mean, for 20 points less, you could have bought Lurtz, which brings you 15 extra model warband space.
And he does
the
it.
might,
He does
you
it
know?
on 25 mil base,
Exactly, yes.
which is also the big thing. It's getting the troll into the right spot is hard, and this doesn't really do anything to support it.
Yeah.
And it's a no might, no like the other thing about Mordor trolls is you can bring one with might,
Yeah.
and cave trolls are like way cheaper and on a smaller base. So the Isengard troll just doesn't. It's just got a lot of downsides, and its upsides are too conditional and filled by other things in the list anyway.
Yeah. I think if they were on 50 mil bases, I think they could be a bit better, but the 60 mil is just that bit too cumbersome to really make good use of in a list like Isengard. Like I said, in Mordor, there's a reason why trolls can work. They're still hard to work well, but there's reasons why they can. But I think, when, like you said perfectly, when your base troops are so expensive, like, would you rather bring one Isengard troll or 10 crossbows? That's the question.
Which do you think
right?
is exactly the question is which is more impactful in the game, and the answer is 12 crossbows almost every game.
And even if it's 10 crossbows that start in the front line because you're playing Contest of Champions, that's 10 fight 4, strength 4 Uruk Hai. They're going to bonk some heads. Like,
Yeah,
you are
exactly.
still going to do so much with those 10 models. And the Isengard Troll has the safety net. Does not have the safety net, sorry. He can just get flash killed. And there's just not much people can do about it.
Exactly.
That being said, though, there was one model in this list that I think does what the Troll does, but better, because it's a 25 mil base. And that is the Beserker.
Alright, go on then, Chris. Tell us about the Beserker.
Well, the Beserker is an Uruk Hai Isengard infantry warrior for 15 points. Now, 15 points sounds kind of expensive. And to be honest, when I first saw the 15 points coming back into the game after my big hiatus, I was like, oh, that feels steep. And it wasn't until I started playing the game that I kind of understood why this is such a good model for its points. So its profile is move 6, fight 4, 4+, strength 4, defense 5, 2 attacks, which is really good, 1 wound, and courage of 7, which is absurd. And that is initially what I thought you were paying all these points for, was the high courage stat compared to Uruk Hai Warriors, which is why I was a bit miffed at first. But there's a lot more to this model than just that. So, he is equipped with just a Beserker Blade and a loincloth. And he's equipped with a lot of glossy null oil as well. And outside of that, he gets the Beserker Blade, which is a hand-and-half sword, and the Uruk Hai that wields it can actually do a special strike with it, which it's not very good. You have to two-hand. You have to two-hand, and you can essentially do a whirling strike and hit every model engaged with you. And that's about all it does. If you have a spear support behind you, you'll also tap your own spear. But you have to two-hand, and then you have to win the fight, two-handing to do it. There's so little circumstances that this model's relevant, doing that big whirly blade thing, that you just won't see it. You will, but it won't work 90% of the time, and then 1 in 10 will work, and you'll feel like you're the best player in the game. Yeah, but... so the situation where, in my opinion, you would call the whirl is like, let's say you're trapped by 3 models, and your opponent has like 4 dice. You're like, I'm almost certainly going to lose this, but they might low roll. May as well just go for this, right? Yeah. Especially if they're higher fight than you, like elves or something against elves. You're like, you know what? Roll a 3, boss. I'm going to roll my 5 on -1 and win, and then just randomly kill 3 elves. But the problem is, it's just so hard to pull off properly. But it's not something you pull off. It's something that comes up randomly, and you remember, oh, this is the situation where I will, and your opponent clinches. Yeah. I'll tell you what, this is one of those rules where I think you do it in a friendly game or in a narrative game, commonly, right? Yeah. Like, I would love to do it like a Storm of Fortress style siege game where every Berserker on a ladder starts on a ladder, just like the movies, and as soon as they go off the ladder, they automatically whirl. That'd be a great rule, right? But like, there's just so little spaces where it actually becomes relevant. I just struggle with it a lot. But, that being said, let's go on to some good rules. They have Oblivious to Pain. This is basically a channeled fury save. Every time these guys cop a wound, they have a 6+. Ignore the wound exactly as if a point of fate had been spent. So it doesn't stack, unfortunately. I wish you could use this and the Fury to go to 5+. That would make the Shaman significantly better as well, I think. Unfortunately, it's not how it works, which is whatever. And the other rule that they have, which is phenomenal, is Impervious to Bowfire, which basically means they have a defense failure of 6 when they're being shot at by shooting attacks. So previously, these guys used to be defense 6 all the time. And so when I saw them at 15 points and defense 5, I was like, oh man, that doesn't feel very good. But I think looking at this model now, with a lot more experience of the game in a competitive setting in my belt, I understand the 15 points is actually a really good bargain for what you get. They're just like assassins, boss. You put him, 2 pikes, you've, transfix someone, and you go, I'm going to two-hand and roll, 8 dice and just clap whoever's here. And that's it, right? And like, if you have a list with 4 of these guys in it, and you go 3 on one flank, 1 on the other, and just use them for traps, or use them with pikes and a banner to get 5 dice going. You put them and 2 pikes into 2 guys, and you have equal dice, except that they can only ever kill one of your models, you can kill 2 of theirs. Exactly. And you probably kill 2 of them as well. That's the thing. And whenever you feel like two-handing, you're doubling your efficiency because you have pikes behind it. Pikes and a banner gives you 3 dice that are still at native rolls. You can use that to brute force so many fights and bring your killing power from really good being a strength 4 list to really, really good being a strength 4 with +1 to wound on 2 attacks. Two-handers and pikes have excellent synergy just inherently. We're talking about it during fiefdoms. It's exactly the same thing as axemen. The exact same reason they're good is why these guys are good. Anytime you can match anytime you can match dice, if you were to two-hand, I think you should, basically. If you can go, I have 2 pikes and a two-hander against an opponent with a sword and a spear behind them, I think you always go for the two-handing option, because unless you're in a losing spot and you need to play safe, you just accelerate your own killing power so hard. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so, with that all being said, let's talk about a slightly less fortunate model. Look, they're fine. Feral Uruk Hai, for 13 points. Uruk Hai Isengard Infantry Warrior, with a movement of 6, fight value of 4, strength value of 4, defense value of 4, 2 attacks, 1 wound, and courage 5. They bring with them 2 swords, and they also have the Oblivious to Pain special rules. So, they should be 12 points. So, you're paying 2 points less than a Beserker. You lose 2 points of courage, a point of defense, and another point of defense against shooting,
And you also don't have a turned weapon, but you do have 2 swords, which is kind of slight upside, but also not really.
I mean, upside against Shadow, that's it.
It's literally upside against Shadow, and that's it. Like, 12 points, I would bring a ton of them. 13 points, I'm like, man, it's so close, but it's just not there. But it's close. It's hard. It's hard to justify them for 13.
Yeah.
And that's about it. It's just Berserkers are 2 points more, and it's like, it's such a large points investment. You may as well put the 2 extra points in to secure them against shooting, to secure them against terror, to secure them against courage checks if you're on breaks.
Yeah.
To get two-handing, it's just so many things that you get upsides on for 2 points that it's hard to ever justify an Uruk Hai Feral.
Yeah. I think if you have a couple of spare points, upgrading a warrior or 2 to a feral Uruk Hai, go for it, right?
The thing is, because the points of everything in Isengard is like 10 and then 15, it's like it always comes down. You can either bring a Berserker or a normal guy.
Yeah, and that's the other hard part as well, isn't it? Like, the Isengard list building is surprisingly easy because everything's either like, you said it yourself, it's like 10 points, or it's 11 because it's a crossbow, or it's 15 because it's a Berserker.
Yeah.
Like, it's very
And in
easy
most points values, it's just going to be a clean 650 or 750
Exactly,
or whatever.
right?
It's fairly straight.
Yeah. And so I think the feral Uruk Hais lose a lot of their agency in most lists because of that. If they had I think if they were part of the Woodland Creature combo set and were part of the Scouts and were in the Scout Legion, I think they'd be better. They'd have value then. They'd have a place.
That would be cool. Movement 8 would make them really good.
Yeah,
hey?
Exactly. Right? Even if they were
You know what?
15 points and
13,
movement 8.
13 points, inherent move 8. There you go. That's a cool profile.
Or could just be with Mauher.
Sure. They could just have like a Scout Feral Uruk Hai.
Exactly.
Upgrade. Yeah.
Like, that would be insane. It wouldn't be insane. It'd just be really good.
It'd be Gundabad Berserkers.
Exactly.
But either way, decent, but not great. Again, outshined by a better profile. Now, onto the ultimate meme weapon of destruction. Chris, tell us about the Demolition Team.
Yes, okay. So, Demolition Teams, they're really simple. I think we'll spend 30-second tops on this profile. So, they're 80 points for the team. What you get for it is basically 2 Uruk Hai Warriors with a sword and 1 Uruk Hai that is a Berserker with a flaming brand. And then you also get your Demolition Charge. So they all act as independent entities. I know a lot of people put the charge on 25mm bases just for ease of use and that sort of stuff as well. The charge itself is basically, it's a heavy object, and it basically has a couple of key things that it does. So the charge can be destroyed, which is really nice. You can destroy it by doing all the usual things you would do when destroying siege weaponry. So if you stand next to it for a whole turn without doing anything, it's removed from play. Or it has a defense of 7 and 3 wounds. You can just beat it up or shoot it out. It's going to be hard to shoot out, but you could. And basically, when you're doing wounds to it, so if you go down the route of I'm going to try and destroy this thing, you have to roll every single time it takes a wound, and on a 6, it detonates. So, spoiler alert, this thing will detonate. There's a few things about the detonation which we need to know about. One of those things is an FAQ to say you have to detonate the bomb with at least 2 enemy models within its blast radius, which is a 2-inch radius. That FAQ happened about a year ago now, and it basically stopped people doing the Saruman compels you 5 inches forward, the scout team marches forward and blows you up in turn 1.
No, well, the thing that it stops is, I've dug up the prize. I'm going to detonate my whole army.
Yeah,
I've now won the game.
That too, yes.
All Lords of Battle, you used to be able to deny a ton of points with it.
Because you were killing yourself.
That got changed in the same FAQ. That
Exactly.
All wounds count, because the Moonmark was stupid.
Yeah, and like a Moonmark was
But either way, there's a few FAQs that essentially get rid of some really cheesy stuff you can do with it.
Yeah.
Its main use is, hey, Aragorn, I rolled a 6 on my wounds.
You have been removed from play.
Correct. So, the actual damage for every model within 2 inches is they take D6 wounds. And these are not a single wound doing D6 damage. These are 6 individual wounds.
Which means 6 fate saves.
Which means if you have a 6 wound hero and you roll a 6 against them, or like a 3 wound, 3 fate hero, they're guaranteed dead no matter what.
Yeah. But if you have King Thor, no wounds.
It is what it is.
The way the detonation works is on the result of a 1, the charge is a dud. What that means is basically this turn it does not detonate, but next turn it will detonate, basically. On a 2 to 5.
No, one it just doesn't detonate.
No, FAQ. It got changed.
Wait, the FAQ changed the way the rule works, so detonate next turn.
Yeah.
Oh, that's funny.
2 to 5 is the explosion goes volatile and blows up just like normal, just like Aleksa described. But on the roll of a 6, it is a big boy chunky explosion, and you roll 2d6 for the wound rolls instead of just the 1d6.
So you do 2 wounds.
Exactly. You have a minimum of 2 now instead of 1, which means you might drop a captain sometimes. The charge is, look, it's fine. It's not amazing. It's not the world's worst thing either. There was one other special actually attached to it, Flaming Brands. So you can equip Uruk Hai Warriors with the Flaming Brands for 1 point.
And your
Berserker comes with it built. What the Flaming Brand does, it adds 1 to the result of the table that you roll on. So you can never roll a 1, and you have a 1/3 chance to roll the Titanic Explosion, which is awesome. It means you can never backfire it, and the setup which you have to do, which there is a bit of setup built for it, right? You have to move it into the right spot, you have to get it set up, and then detonate it at the start of the combat phase. There's a bit of a question about whether the bomb goes off before heroics go off. I don't understand why heroics would go off first, to be honest.
I hate this one.
I know, it's confusing.
Where's the word? Where's the detonation? Detonating the charge.
Yeah, that is.
Model the framing band, which is not engaged. My attempt to set up the start of the fight phase. Start of the fight phase.
Yeah, so it's the same wording as start of the fight phase, you declare heroics. So I don't see why this wouldn't go off first, because the start of the fight phase is when you declare the heroics, and then in your fight phase is when heroics get resolved.
Yeah, there's a really simple solution to this, Chris.
T.O.?
Just don't bring this model, it's really bad.
Yeah, that's fair.
Unironically, I think this should never work against a good player, and if you've been blown up by it, unlucky, boss.
Yeah. The only thing I will say as well is if you ever do want to detonate the the actual demolition charge itself, you have to roll a courage test. So your Berserker with courage 7 will almost always pass.
Literally only
Snake
fails
Eyes,
in double ones. Yep.
Yeah, Snake Eyes is the only way it fails, and you will never have the dud result on the demolition charge.
No, you will.
When you have the Berserker with a flaming brand as well.
No. So if you don't have a brand, you have to roll 6 to detonate. If you have a brand, you roll the normal table.
Oh, true. Yes.
So you can dud with a brand, which is hilarious. But yeah, so if you're detonating with someone who doesn't have a brand, you need to roll a 6 to detonate. If you're rolling with a brand, it detonates on a 2+.
Yeah, that's right. That's what it does. Yeah. So I thought I had +1 to the result. Never mind.
That's what I thought too initially, and then I was like, wait a minute, I can read the rules.
Yeah.
I've looked at this profile about once in my life, and that's it.
Yeah. I've played against it twice. Both times I've played against it. So the first time I played it, I shot out all the Berserkers early and fought them in combat and took them all out of action, and then just fought my opponent front to back because I relied on the fact that they'd failed their courage test to blow it up, which I was successful in. And the second time I played against a demolition charge, I was playing a shooting list and literally shot every model that tried to pick up the charge, so it never reached combat.
In my one game against it, I just pinned him next to it so that if he detonated, he'd kill more Uruk Hai than he would kill my models, and my models were cheaper, and I was like, cool, detonate it.
Yeah.
Guess what? He didn't detonate it.
That's the other thing as well. If you're fighting a horde, if you're fighting goblins, they don't care. They'll happily just walk on.
This is the thing with it. It's only good if it hits a hero, essentially.
Yeah. You have to, because it's 80 points, right? You have to play the I'm really hoping my opponent's Imrahil gets too close to me. Or even the fact that my opponent is bringing big heroes. If they're bringing a Mordor army with Shagrat being their biggest hero, you might take Shagrat out of action, but you have to roll a 6 on the wound rolls to even get a chance at that properly. There's a lot that just might not happen with this demolition charge, and I think that's the problem with it. Is it's so inconsistent that it doesn't always have the value you want with it, basically.
Yeah. And with that, let's go to a consistently not great profile. The Dunlending Warrior. For 7 points, you get Man Dunlending Infantry Warrior. Move 6, fight value of 3, strength of 4, defense of 4, 1 attack, 1 wound, and courage 3. They bring in armor and an axe, and they can bring a banner for 25 points, a shield for a singular point, a dagger and bow swap from the axe for 1 point, and a two-handed axe for 1 point. I mean, just a Moran Orc, but worse, right? Moran points are 8. Moran Orc's 8 points, right?
Well, they're 7 base, but their defense 5 base.
Yeah, exactly. So it's literally just a Moran Orc, gains 1 courage, loses 1 defense, which I'd say is a bad trade overall.
I think so.
Also have less weapon options, but they're Dunlendings, and they go in the Dunlending list where you get a couple other bonuses, mainly the 6-inch banner. They're not terrible. In the context of Isengard outside of Dunland, I think you'd very rarely see them. In the context of the Dunlander Legion, you obviously bring some amount of them. Question is how much? Your ratios, they're probably about 40% of your list, I'd say 30 to 40%. Yeah. Maybe more, depends exactly what you're building.
They make a good backbone for the Dunland side of your list, but outside of that, they get outshone by a lot of other things in the army. And I think that's their biggest problem.
You'd rather just pay the one extra point for a scout and just get fight for. It's too much. Like, it's too good to not take.
Yeah. And I think that's it, right? Like, I think, yeah, it's a shame that Dunland and Isengard are the same army list, because if they're two separate army lists entirely, I think these guys would stand out a lot more, basically.
Yeah, they'd be a lot stronger. But it is what it is. Like I said, you get some bows, not terrible. It's your only 24-inch normal move bow.
Yeah.
So that has use. Not much, but it has use. You've got crossbows or strength 3 bows are probably overall better, and they're also on better bodies.
Yeah, but in isolation, in a Dunland army,
these
guys are great.
Yes, I agree. Again, they have value, they have purpose, but just not in Isengard.
Yeah.
Speaking of, take it away, Chris, with the best model
in the game. Yeah. So the Wildman of Dunland, or as I like to call them, the Wildman of Dunland. For 5 points, they are man, Dunlanding, infantry, warrior, and have the Isengard keyword.
And are fearless.
Yep. And they are movement 6, fight 3, 4+. They are strength of 3, defense of 3, 1 attack, 1 wound, and courage fearless. They have a sword or an axe. That's a typo. They have axes. And they have no war gear options, because you'd never make them 6 points for a turned weapon. And they
you would in Dunland.
Would you though?
I think so.
Why would you not just bring a Dunland Warrior for the same thing?
Because most armies are D6. You're just piercing.
But you can do that with both profiles, can you not?
No,
I would rather do it on the... Because I think these guys work best as the flanking model, right?
Kind of, but you can like flanking two-hand.
And you have Huscarls, so you don't really need to pay extra points for turning models.
Maybe. But I don't know, it's interesting. Look, I think there's value to two-handed axes on them, because since most of the game is only ever at most D6, outside of like dwarves, being able to pierce the strength 4 is all you really need, so you have a cheaper like guy who's going to just suicide.
Yeah, I mean, that's fair enough.
And I think that's the quote. And it's like, if you're bringing bows on your Dunlending Warriors, you can't bring, like, you don't want to bring that and a 200 axe, do you really? Do you want to make them 9 points?
Yeah,
probably
that's
not.
fair. That's fair.
So some just cheap, like, 200 weapons to fill out points. If you have, like, 3 points left, you may as well chuck some 200
Yeah, okay, to that I'd agree, actually.
Yeah. They don't lose their one-handed weapon either.
That's also true.
So, you know...
It becomes value
They just become quite versatile, yeah.
But I think, like, these guys, 11 of these guys, and a Oathmaker, that's 100 points on the dot. Like, that's 12 bodies. That's an almost perfectly full warband. That's a lot of extra bang for your buck that you just get. And I think in an Isengard list, that's when these models shine the most, because they boost your bow count or crossbow count out the wazoo.
Yeah, they're okay. You have to bring a bad hero.
That's the catch, right? You have to bring a...
In certain builds, I think they're solid. I think in like a Saruman build, I probably wouldn't bother, because they die too fast. They can bring you to your breakpoint really fast.
Yeah.
Obviously, you want me to encourage checks, but it means the game can end earlier, potentially, if it's a break game.
Yeah. I think in a game where you're doing like 800 points, and you're doing like Lurtz, Thrydan, Vrasku, and
Mauher or Vrasku.
Yeah, and these guys, that's when they come up. When you're doing like the smaller hero spam and getting like 50 models on the table, they actually let you do that and get double banners on the table as well at 800 points.
And then they take the terror checks for you, basically.
Exactly, right?
They take the terror checks so you can clear the front line, get into a good spot, and then try to best through.
Yeah, and then you can pike stack behind them and you don't care, and then you can piercing strike. That's when you'd actually make a couple of two-handers. There you go.
Sure, yeah, exactly. Like, they have value in that regard.
Yeah, but they fill a very niche part of the list. So, that's okay. On to our next Dunland profile. Hey.
The Dunlending Horseman. For 12 points, you get a man Dunlending Cavalry Warrior with a movement of 6, a fight value of 3, a strength of 4, a defense of 5, a singular attack, and 1 wound with courage 3. They get armor, shield, horse, axe, and dagger. They really are just shatterproof as an army, aren't they?
Yeah, literally.
They have a special rule: slay their horses. While they have the cavalry hero keyword, they reroll once to wound against mounts. Look, again, very similar to a lot of these Dunland profiles. In isolation, they're okay, but for 11 points, I can bring a Warg Rider, and I would just rather have a Warg Rider.
Well, and like, if you look at it as 12 points for the Warg Rider with shield,
they are basically the same thing, but one has +1 courage, the other one just doesn't die half the time.
Yeah, literally half the time has twice the wounds.
No, it's about 40-ish%. It's not quite half the time, but
90% of the time, half the time they have it.
Exactly. So yeah, having Yeah, in a world with Warg Riders, it's hard to justify Dunlending Horsemen. In a world without them, they're pretty good.
In Dunland, fantastic.
Yeah, in a vacuum, it's a solid choice. Warg Riders are just super efficient cav. It's like the one up, like the Slay the Horses is whatever, especially if you have Frida in your list, because you're like, I'm full of rules anyway.
Yeah, but it means that Frida doesn't have to be off on the flank, which is where the cab would
But also,
be.
you'd rather just punch the rider out, if you're, especially with a Strength 4 or potentially Strength 5 guy.
Yeah.
Which is like their one upside is they have axes. You can piercing strike with them, go to Strength 5. You can't do that with Warg Riders because they don't increase the mount strength.
Exactly.
It's just wonky.
Yeah.
So that's their upside. Is it worth it? Again,
Sometimes.
yes in Dunland, no in Isengard.
Yeah.
Which is kind of the theme with all of these models as we go to the next model, Chris.
The Huscarl, yes. So, Huscarls, they are 11 points, so only 1 point less than the cavalry model. They're man, Dunland, infantry, warrior. They are a move 6, fight 3, but we'll come back to that. Strength of 4, defense of 5, 1 attack, 1 coach 3. They have heavy armor, the Dunland War Axe, and a dagger, just in case there's some shadow on the field. And the War Axe is a axe that can be used as either a spear or a two-handed axe. So this is your spear support profile for the army of Dunland, basically. They have bodyguard as a special rule, and they also have favor of the war chief, which is basically a really fancy way of saying there's too many conditions for this special rule. Dunlending Huscarls, supporting, so they have to do the spear support, a fight that is within 3 inches of a friendly Dunlending hero, gain +1 fight there during the fight phase. I don't know why it's
not even fight phase, for the duration of the fight.
not even the whole phase.
Which means if your hero gets sniped out, if your opponent's priority and they
gone.
just punch your hero out, you lose your +1.
Yeah.
Look,
So, I think if it was one or the other, I think if they could spear support to bring fight 4, or whilst within 3 inches of a hero, they fight 4, fantastic profile. The fact that it's both, which means you can't get the two-handed axe benefit going, or the fearless bodyguard rule to charge those terror model, like, there's so much about this model that could have been phenomenal, just like the heroes were.
Or just make them 10 points.
Yeah, literally. Like, if they were 10 points, not 11, I wouldn't complain at all about them. But the fact that you're paying 1 point less than the cavalry model to do objectively less,
The thing is,
it just hurts.
you have to bring them though.
That's the problem, because they only proper
They
spear
are
support.
only spears,
And
and
they
they
only
only
fight
fight 4, and it's like, you have to bring them. They're just getting charged a lot for bodyguard, and they're getting charged a lot for the versatility of their weapon equipment.
Yeah.
It's rough. Like, they're fine. They're perfectly fine, but they're just like, could be 10 points, or they could just be base fight 4. They could just have the +1 always when they're supporting, or they could just have the +1 always when in 3.
They're perfectly good at being perfectly average.
They're just not a super impressive profile for the 11 point cost.
And I think most of my issues with this profile come from the fact that all the heroes were so good and were so unique and so flavorful to then just have hero 2 arbitrary conditions that make your army function.
Even the Dunlending Cav, as mediocre as they are, I think are really cool rules-wise. I really enjoy having Strength 4 with Piercing Strike on a cavalry model.
Exactly.
That's quite cheap.
Yeah.
Like, that is a profile I think is really solid, and I would take in a lot of lists. It's just Warg Riders are better, but that's okay in the context of just a pure Dunland list. It doesn't matter. This profile is just like, it's just too much random stuff to make them good, but you have to bring them. And it's like, this is what it is.
It's just upsetting, right?
Yeah.
But let's talk about a slightly less upsetting model, unless you're the opponent.
Crebain. Oh, my children. So, for 20 points, you get bird keyword. Bird. I didn't realize they had the bird keyword. Why do they have the... What is...
So you can ally with eagles.
Infantry. Do they have the bird keyword?
No, I don't know. Probably.
Infantry warrior. With a move value of 4, but wait, there's more. Fight value of 2, a strength of 2, a defense of 3, 2 attacks,
Berserkers.
4 wounds, and a courage value of 3. They have beacon claws. They have the fly special rule, so they move 12. They have keen sight, so enemy models within 12 of Crebain gain no benefit from the stalk unspeed special rules. Lothlorien players, eat your hearts out. I will gun you down.
It's okay. They still have a blinding light.
Finally, they have Cloud of Birds. Shooting attacks will only ever hit a Crebain on the roll of a 6. I love birds, okay? They are phenomenal. They are a utility piece. They are they block people. They trap people. They just randomly pick off models on the flank because they're 2 attacks. They're so hard to kill because they have 4 wounds. You can't shoot them. They can hold objectives like it's no one's business. You're playing capture and control. You can fly from one objective to another each turn and capture it.
Literally.
You can literally just capture it like midpoint and then fly to the point on the end, and then next turn you can fly to the point on the other side. You literally just fly around tagging objectives, and they're never going to die because shooting is not going to kill them. Magic's not efficient at killing them. Who cares at defense 3? 4 wounds, boss.
Yeah.
And you fly them behind your opponent, you trap 2 of their spear supports, now their frontline's trapped, and the birds might just beat the spears because it's 2 attacks.
Literally, yeah. And like if you're comboing that with like heroes and berserkers and stuff like that, you're actually just mulching whatever flank that they go.
And guess what? Even if the spears win and both wound, I've still got 2 wounds.
Literally, you can do it one more time, and your opponent's probably going to sink 3 models to trap and kill the model if they don't win the fight the first
And then
time.
you Stalk Blast it,
And the whole combat goes down,
and you don't care.
It takes 1 wound.
and you've still got 1 wound left. The bird's still alive.
It's fantastic, yes. I love these models. The only problem I have with them is that they suffer from not having the Isengard keyword, which means that they will break on the turn that you do break. But outside of that, like, there's really not much that they don't have.
And it's not that big a deal. Like, if you're smart with how you use them, it's like, it is what it is. They might flee, they might not. But, or just don't break, you know? It's such a simple solution, isn't it?
Yeah, easy fix, right? Yeah.
But yeah, phenomenal. Yeah. 20 points, so worth it. I feel like you always bring 1 at like 750, 800. You maybe bring 2. You probably don't need more. They're a utility piece, but they're a great one.
Exactly that. Yeah.
Now, we've got a couple of warriors from another list. Chris, take it away with the Orc Warrior.
Ah, yes. Everyone's best friend. The Orc Warriors are 5 points. I think this is the first time we've talked about them on...
Correct.
Yeah. So, Orc Warriors. They are the Orc Mortal Infantry Warrior. They are a movement of 6, fight of 3, 5+ shoot value. They have a strength of 3, defense of 4, 1 attack, 1 wound, courage of 2. Now, the really good thing about them, they can bring a sword or a pick, or sword and an axe, right? You can piercing strike or you can stab with them. Phenomenal. The fact that you have that built into your choice, off the bat straight away. They have a banner for 25 points. They have orc bows for 1 point. They have a shield for 1 point. They have a spear for 1 point. And they have a 2-handed weapon, which is not specific. So you can do 2-handed axes or swords or whatever else you want for 1 point. These models are fantastic for filling out your legendary legions. And they're fantastic for bulking out your points if you don't want to go down the Wildman route, because you want something that's a bit harder to kill.
Yeah, D4, D5 with a shield. It's decent. Again, no Isengard keywords. They might flee, but also they're going to be the models that die first, so you don't really care that much.
Yeah, it just means that they are there to help bulk your points, bulk your model count, basically. Yep. Personally, I would do the Isengard, the Wildmen, just because I like the aesthetic. And
he's obsessed with the Wildman Oathmaker. This man loves that model, and it's beyond me. Every single conversation, it's like, "Hey Aleksa, did you know for 100 points you can bring the Wildman Oathmaker and 11 models?" And I'm like, "Yes, Chris, you told me 6 months ago. The points haven't changed. I know." And he's like, "Yeah, but did you know?"
Okay, but like, love is a very strong word, and my partner's sick of me using it with this guy, right? Like, genuinely, like, yeah. Anyway, we're talking about orcs. Orcs are great. They're the backbone of like half the armies in the evil side of the game, and there's just not a lot you really can go wrong with them. For 6 points, you get a defense 5 model. Like, that's amazing. They're just good. They're reliable. They do all the things you'd want them to, but not nearly as well as a Warg Rider.
Yeah, so Warg Riders for 11 points. You also get Orc Mordor Cavalry Warrior. Movement value of 6, but really it's 10. Fight value of 3, who cares? Strength of 3, but it's actually 4. Defense 4, 1 attack, 1 wound, and courage 2. They bring the armor, the sword, and the warg. So the warg basically is a strength 4 mount, which means that these guys are strength 4. The warg also has an attack, which means when the rider dies, they do not immediately flee. Instead, you take a courage check. If you pass, you get another model. The warg model is pretty good. It's just a 40 mil base infantry model.
Literally, yeah.
It's basically means that there's like a 35 to 40% chance this is a 2 wound model. That's really good. Also, they can bring a banner, a bow, a shield, or throwing spears. Or there's a 1 point. You probably bring shields, you maybe bring throwing spears, you probably don't bring bows. Agreed?
Yeah. Cool.
Just very solid. They're what makes Dunlending Cavalry not that important.
Yes. And it's really interesting with the Warg Riders because there's such a... Usually with cavalry models, what you pay for them is explicitly the 5-point upgrade for the cavalry itself, right? But because there's actually a discount on the combination cost of these models, basically. Because the Wargs are 7 points base and your Orc Warriors are 5 points base. And so you're actually paying 1 point less to combine the profile on the chance that the Warg will flee if the Rider dies. That's, I think, one of the big things that makes this model
But you
so
also gain
useful.
cavalry keyword, which they don't inherently have.
Exactly. It's just such a powerful trade to go a discount for an objectively better profile.
Exactly.
And yes, you're paying, like, you can look at it as you pay 6 points instead of 5 for the mount upgrade, but you get +1 strength on top of that.
Yes.
Like, it's just
it's solid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the designers know that because you can't bring an axe with these guys. They're just fantastic, right? And like you said it, you either bring bow or you bring shield throwing spear, right? And I think that's the combo you do almost every time because it's just a really good way to run these guys at either 12 points with bows or 13 points with the throwing spear as well.
Just with just a throwing spear, just a shield, depending on how points look. It like the thing that's fine. No matter what you do, there's no like must-have equipment on them.
There's no mistakes you can make on these guys.
Any loadout other than bringing a banner is probably correct. Even then, maybe you bring a banner from a mobile banner.
Right?
You could make an argument for a mobile banner. Yeah.
But
if the rider dies and the mount lives, can the Warg carry my banner? Is it considered in base contact with me?
no, you can't carry that. There's an FAQ to talk about that stuff.
That's really random.
Yeah.
All right, well, good thing you know that.
Yeah, there's some. I forget how it's worded, but it's what stops Wargs and Cave Drakes and stuff like that picking up banners.
Well, Cave Drakes can't do it because they're heroes.
Because they're heroes anyway, yeah. But like you know what I mean. It stops monsters.
Well, trolls can pick it up, can't they?
Troll.
It just says friendly warrior model.
I assume
Trolls
a
are warriors.
Like, unless the FAQ specifies on that, but I assume you can. I'd be very sad if you had to do it because you're
do I want
110 point Isengard Troll.
on my troll, or do I
Yeah.
want to keep my banner?
Well, your banner goes to a 60 mil base at least.
That's pretty good, actually.
Yeah.
Ironically, not terrible.
Yeah, I'd almost do that. Yeah.
Anyway, with that is our final profile, and we are now 34 slides in with 7 more to go.
Yeah.
But we're going to take a quick break and refresh ourselves.
And if we come back, we will see you guys then. And we are back with the final part. So, let's jump straight in with our allies. Aleksa, what sort of allies do we have?
Everything, but it's yellow.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
There's a few that you don't have, like Barad-dûr, and a few of the obvious ones like that.
Pretty much, it's like this just a wall of yellow.
Yeah.
But to me, it just seems very unnecessary. Like, a lot of the best allies are things that cover downsides in the army. So, for example, like, Corsairs plus Serpent Horde is great because you get a solid mounted hero, you get solid cheap troops that can fill out your points.
And cavalry.
And you get cavalry that Corsairs normally don't have. That's a really great, like, alliance mix-up because the two armies cover each other's downsides and have their own inherent strengths, and they synergize, and there's just a lot of good stuff happening. Whereas with Isengard, it's like, the list is already like 3 army lists anyway. Why do anything else? You got great wizards, you got great frontline troops, you got great shooting, you've got great, like, everything basically. And so it's just like, you know, it's a question of, do you really need allies outside of doing really weird, wacky stuff?
Yeah, I think the one big thing that you're lacking is dedicated monsters. I think your troll's fine, it's whatever. It's not going to win any awards.
Hero monsters really is what you're lacking.
Yeah,
Hero
and
monsters.
so if you're looking for something like that, because you're yellow with Moria, and because you're yellow with Mordor, you can actually start to look at some of those might point heroes. And I think that's one of the big things that you would look outside a list for, especially when you have things like Saruman next to them. I think that's a really scary point, like 1-2 punch, is something big and spooky, right? But the problem with it is now you're sinking a lot of points, so you have to look at an 800 point army realistically to feel that comfortably and still keep a model count that's somewhat passable. But there's always going to be downsides when you're trading up for monsters, right?
Exactly. So, with that being said, let's jump into the first list. This is my favorite way to play. It is built around Saruman.
Yeah.
So, this is Saruman on horse, 1 Uruk Hai with banner, 3 Uruk Hai with shield, 5 Uruk Hai crossbow, 7 with pikes, 1 Warg Rider with spear and shield, and the 1 Crebain. Then we've got Ugluk with 1 Uruk Hai Warrior with shield, 4 Uruk Hai with crossbows, 6 Uruk Hai with crossbows and pikes. That's not true. Those are not crossbows. That's 6 Uruk Hai with pikes. 1 Warg Rider with spear and shield. And finally, we've got Vrasku, 2 warriors with shields, 2 warriors with crossbows, 1 Warg Rider with shield. 9 might, 39 models, 12 bows, 750 points. Also, you've got Vrasku, so that's 2 more shots. So it's actually 14 crossbow shots. That's a lot of damage.
It is a really spooky way to play a control shooting list, basically, right? Because you have Saruman to control your mid-board, you have crossbows to force the opponent to start walking, and you have an Uruk Hai line to just beat your opponent, like, literally just beat your opponent front to back so comfortably. And then on top of that, Ugluk and Vrasku are powerful combatants. You don't have Grima, despite what the photo tells us. But
look, this is a really awkward points level for writing a list for Isengard, in my opinion, or at least with Saruman Isengard. It just doesn't work out cleanly. You can't get 3 solid full warbands. Like 800, you'd just probably add Grima and 5 Uruks, and or like 2 Uruks, or like an Uruk Beserker, a normal Uruk, stuff like that.
Yeah.
You're chilling. 650 or 700 are also pretty straight up. Like you just bring Saruman plus Vrasku or Saruman plus Lurtz, fill up both warbands. 750 is really awkward. It's really hard to fill 3 warbands properly. It's just that is what it is. So it's why it's kind of a weird list, but this is how I think I would run it. You get some decent mobility with Warg Riders. You get a solid model count. You get a lot of shooting.
And your might pool is still pretty high as well.
9 might. Yeah, like I said, it's just a bit of an awkward one. I don't think that there's the other stuff would be incorrect. Like bringing Grima is still good, but then your model count feels a bit low. You're bringing, Lurtz. Your model count feels really low, in my opinion.
Yeah.
You could drop the Warg Riders, but it's only really saving 2 points to like downgrade to a warrior. Like it's not really getting you that much. You could get 6 extra points. That doesn't really do anything for you.
Yeah, I think it's just tricky, and I think for the points value, like 39 models is really good for Isengard when you consider the fact that Saruman's on the front of it.
Yeah, exactly. That's the thing. That was my sort of general thinking was max bow count as much as I can. Get a little bit of Warg Rider, get a bit of Crebain for movement, so I've got some decent reach. Saruman does most of the work with the crossbows. I don't have Grima. It is what it is. I'll find a different way to deal with heroes.
Exactly. Like we've said it a few times, 750 points, 40 models, you really can't go wrong. And if you're getting close to or exceeding 40, you're in the sweet spot of getting to a really scary list.
Especially when everything's strength 4, 5, 4.
Exactly. Right?
Well, there's three Warg Riders, but they're strength 4 still, and you can just combo them with another model and do all sorts of stuff.
Well, I mean, your Warg Riders are what we call backpackers for your captains, right? They're there to help slingshot Ugluk into something else.
Yeah, exactly. Or just knock prone a character. You've transfixed the character. You can't trap him, but you put Vrasku plus a Warg Rider in, and you just smack him.
Yeah, like those Warg Riders put the heroes on their backs and carry them through to the late game.
Exactly.
And carry them through to the back line and do all that heavy lifting and knocking down and traps and all the rest of it and enable models to do what they do best. They're not there to win fights on their own. They're not there to go toe-to-toe with a single, Rivendell Lancer. Like,
exactly.
They're there to trade evenly in the line itself and to break your opponent's lines up so your pikes do even more.
Exactly.
Because they're already going to be shredded from crossbows anyway.
Yeah. So, there's a few things I think you could definitely switch around in this list. You could, go drop the Ugluk and Vrasku, switch to Lurtz, fill out both warbands, bring Grima. That could be a way to do it, but I don't know how points would work out on that exactly. Just Orkies, basically. You could bring a bunch of Orcs to fill out models instead of Uruk Hai. You could bring some Wildmen instead of Uruk Hai. There's a bunch of different builds. This is just where I gravitate towards with it overall.
Yeah, imagine if you swapped Ugluk and his warband for just...
I don't care how many points.
Wildman?
No, I don't. Alright, moving on to the next list. So we're doing some meme lists here. So Saruman on a horse, 11 Warg Riders with throwing spear and shield, 1 Orc Warrior with shield on foot because I don't have enough points.
Yep.
Mauher with 12 Uruk Hai Marauders with bows.
It's fantastic, yep.
And Sharku with 10 Warg Riders with shield and throwing spear. Look, it's a meme, but I mean, this is just a lot of movement, a lot of model count for what it is.
Yeah.
Pretty good shooting.
You're only 2 less models than the last list.
And it's all mounted, and there's a really strong wizard.
Yeah.
And basically, you just walk around until your opponent traps you. You spend as long as you can just Sorc blasting all their heroes onto their feet, take out their banner, just annoy your opponent till they just walk into a terrible spot, and then you charge them with 20 Warg Riders.
And they're all throwing spears and bows, right? That's the scary part.
Yep, well, you got 12 bows, and you've got 21 throwing spears.
Yeah, and you have 1 orc that charges in turn 1.
No, he just goes prone in a building.
Yeah, prone, even better, yeah. Yes, I think this is a really cool list. I think the idea of it and the actioning of it are 2 very different things. I think a really skilled player could make a list like this really strong. I think if you're someone newer to the game, but likes the idea of this list, play Lurtz's Scouts and just get used to moving 8 inches and understanding why movement 8 matters. And instead of just, I charge on the turn I want to, ha ha ha, there's a lot of depth that Movement 8 brings to the game, and Movement 10 brings even more. And being cavalry means that if you make one mistake with your positioning and movement, you are going to lose models quickly. And I think, for those who are good at cavalry and those seasoned in the game, this is a fantastic list to just throw onto the table and have fun with. But if you're someone who's looking to get started with the game, I would look at the previous list and use that as your entry-level army, I think.
Yeah, I think this list is very... Look, I actually think it could be a very... Like, you're playing in someone with low shooting or mid shooting, like, where it's not like elves, basically. Just sniper out their bows, then you have total control over the game. Like, just total control.
Yeah.
And that's huge.
And
like,
you never do a combat unless you're guaranteed to sacrifice.
You don't combat till you've, like, just worn them down a ton, you've sniped all their heroes onto being on foot, they've moved forward into you because they have no choice, and then you just charge. And you're like, cool, I can charge... I can make 20 1v1s, except I am a cavalry, so it's actually effectively a 2v1, and you just blow up their list.
Exactly, yeah. I think it's a tricky list, but it can actually work really well. So I like it.
I really want to try this. Am I buying 24 Warg? No, I'm just taking Tom's. He can't stop me.
That's true, yeah.
Alright. Finally, onto something a bit more normal. So, Army of Dunland, running in the Legendary Legion. We've got Thrydan Wolfsbane on a horse. We've got the named character, Crebain.
Oh yeah, that's right. Crebain the character. Yeah.
1 Dunlending Horseman, 4 Huscarls, 4 Dunlending Warriors with shields, 2 Dunlending Warriors with bow and dagger. We've got a Chieftain with 1 Dunlending Horseman, 4 Huscarls, 4 Dunlending Warriors with shield, 2 Dunlending Warriors with bows. We've got Gorulf Ironskin with a Dunlending Horseman named character.
Yeah.
We've got a lot of interesting named characters today. 4 Huscarls, 4 Warriors with shield, 1 Warrior with mana, 2 Warriors with bow, the Wildman Oathmaker, 7 Wildmen of Dunland, 3 Wildmen of Dunland with 200 weapons, 1 Dunlending Horseman, and 1 Huscarl. 11 might, 49 models, 6 bows.
I have a question for you. Did you write this list?
I think so.
And it has a Wildman Oathmaker in it.
Yep.
Wow. That's really exciting. So Wildman Oathmakers, they're really good because for 55 points, you can bring him, and then you can bring 10 other guys.
Well, guess what we didn't do? We didn't do that, okay? We've actually got 12 other guys.
Yeah.
Okay? It's actually more than 100 points, and there's 3 200 weapons in there.
Yes, but like genuinely, this is a really fun list. And because you have the banners that are 6 inches, and you have your once per game buff up with the Legendary Legion, this list can actually be really spooky on the turn that you want to fully commit to it. It's got Crebain as well, which means that you can largely negate some of the disadvantages that only your 6 bows bring you. Look, it's only 6 bows. You're going to have to do a lot of walking. Your opponent outshoots you.
The 6 bows are literally just there for a no shooting matchup. It's
literally.
They do not. Otherwise, they just walk with your line and just punch people. Yeah. They're not actually there to shoot people.
Yes, and I think this list is going to be one that, for the Legendary Legion, is going to be probably as good as you'll get at 750. You've not got access to all your toys. I think 800 is when you can bring Frida and not feel terrible about half warbands, because you can, like, 2/3 fill most of your warbands, at least. But, that being said, this is still, I think, a really well-written list, and it has the might pool to actually sustain combat for a few turns, even if you're not winning all your fights.
Yeah, I mean, that's how I'd run the list. There's a few different things you could do. You could bring Frida instead of Oathmaker. That wouldn't be terrible, in my opinion. It's a meta call. Do you think there's terror? I think that the utility of the Oathmaker is more likely to come into play than the utility of Frida. Like,
exactly.
If you asked me, if you went to a 5 or 6 game event, which would come up more often, I feel like the Fearless would come up more often than the negating charges, essentially. Yeah. That's the call.
And I think you have Gorulf to catch the heroes that you're scared of, right? And thus you don't need Frida all the time.
Exactly. And again, it depends. There's a lot of factors that go into it, and also preference, and also play style, and all that. Frida is overall better, but Oathmaker brings utility to your normal goons.
Exactly.
And because of the points as well, like, maybe at more points, I would just bring Frida, drop the Oathmaker, fill out her warband with better Dunlendings. Have the same model count roughly, but just higher quality models and no Wildman Oathmaker.
Yeah, maybe something like that. Right?
That's saying, like, let's say we're 800, I'd switch him to Frida and basically upgrade the Wildman to Huscarls and Warriors.
Yeah, I think that'd probably be a really good call, actually, to do that for 800. But, that being said, this list still works really well. But, do you know what works better than a Wildman? It's a dragon with fly. So, let's talk about this lovely little list that I've written up. We've got Lurtz with 6 Uruk Hai Warriors with pike, 3 Warriors with crossbow. You got Vrasku with 5 Warriors with pikes, 3 with the crossbows, and 1 with the banner. Then you bring the dragon with fly, 10 goblins with shields, and 1 bat swarm. So, this list, it's 32 models, to be honest. Still actually pretty good, considering you have a 300-point model rocking the boat. But you only have 9 bows. They're all crossbows, except for Lurtz. And you still got 9 points of might in the tank. Because your dragon is a hero of valor, you get the luxury of the choice. Do you want the dragon, or do you want Lurtz as your leader? I'd probably pick Lurtz, because you can keep him a bit safer, and he just won't randomly die to a failed courage check when taking a wound. But he's a lot more fragile as well. So there's a downside to both sides of it. But what are your thoughts on this list?
Why? Burn.
Yeah, that's
Is
fair.
a good model. You know, look, this is, like I said, when we talked about it with the things you can do with yellow, like having a lot of yellows, you have a lot of different weird, wacky things you can bring, and I think this is one of the more interesting ones you can do. The other fun one is you bring Saruman, you bring a fly Wormtounge dragon, and you just go, that's just insane control. Or you bring a fly flame breath dragon as well, pretty solid combo too. Played against that one once, terrifying. Yeah.
I think at 750, I personally just don't like the points breakdown of Saruman and the dragon, and it forces Saruman into your leader role, which you probably wanted anyway, to be fair. But I think, yeah, I just strongly prefer the model count side of it than the control mage part of it, basically. But, I mean, both work really well. Like you said, we've seen the Saruman dragon combo work, and Crebain were monumental in that list as well.
Oh yeah, they were huge.
Yeah, and so, yeah, I think relative to what you're doing with this list, it feels a really good spot in the list, and it plugs up that gap that we mentioned earlier of low monster impact, basically. Yeah, let's jump into our final list, which is the Ugluk Scouts Legendary Legion. So, we've got Ugluk with 5 scouts with bow, 2 with shield, 1 with a banner and shield. We have 5 scouts with bow, 2 with the shield, 1 with a banner and shield, and 1 drummer, all in Mauher's warband. We have Snaga with 12 orcs, spear and shield, Grishnak, 12 orcs, spear and shield, and then a scout captain with shield, 5 with bow, and 2 with shield for the scouts in his warband as well. So, this is a huge might pool. It's 14 points of might, and it is just shy of, was it 15 on the dot, I think, bows? Yeah, 15 bows on the dot.
It's 15 bows, it's a lot.
Like, it's a lot of punch in this list, and you've got 50 models in it. It's got all the things you want. If I were to make this list truly, truly competitive, I think the Snaga warband would get replaced with another Uruk Hai Scout Captain, probably.
Maybe. I think there's a few different things you can do. I think, personally, I'd probably drop the drummer.
Yeah, I think you can drop the drummer.
Drop the drummer, was he 25 points? 35.
35,
Just 3 extra guys in your shield captain's warband, and you got 5 points spare. Maybe you just, give 5 guys axes or something stupid.
Or even just get rid of half of the shields on your orcs to bring something else as well.
There's
plenty of different things you can swap.
There's a lot of different ways to build it. I think this is a solid way to play it. I think 24 spears is good.
I wrote this list with the intention of being the most well-rounded thing I could bring for 750.
Yeah, I think drop the drummer, fill out the scout captain's warband fully, and then go from there. The thing is, you can't fill out 4 warbands of Uruk Hai, 1 warband of orcs doesn't fill out great, I think. And you'd lose some bow limit probably, but if you're dropping the drummer, maybe you do gain some bow limit. Actually, yeah. So it's interesting either way. There's a lot of different ways to build the list, and I think that's what I like about it.
Yeah, definitely.
I personally prefer going heavier on the scouts, just to abuse the shooting, abuse the movement. And then, the main trick that comes into using the orc side is to call a march with a character, charge with all your scouts, and then move the character, and then your spears can move 9, which means they can keep up with your Uruk Hai.
Exactly. And I think, like I said, this is a really good entry-level list for playing Legendary Legion, because it'll give you a little bit of everything. And if you find that after 10 games of this list, you're struggling with getting models in the right spot, get rid of the Snaga warband straight away and add Uruk Hai. If you're someone who's, finding that the balance of the spear supports that are then becoming your trap +1 wound, or not even traps, isn't it? It's just outnumber +1 wound.
Fight together. Oh, if there's an orc and an Uruk Hai in the same fight,
which means your heroes are getting enabled off of troops, which is fantastic. The
one thing you gotta look for is trying to put a hero with with a scout of an orc next to him to fight the same guy, and then they both go.
And then Grishnak and Snaga respectively with Uruk Hai. Yeah, and I think once you get used to that, and if you find you someone who likes having a lot of that spread across your list, I think the double Orc captains can work. Or if you want to boost points, like if this is an 800 point list, you literally just fill the Scout Captain's Warband. Like it's,
5 more scouts with shields. It's 20. It's 12-man model. You got 36 Uruks. You got 24 Orcs. That's solid.
It's fantastic, right?
That's so insane.
And so I think this list, like I said, it's a great starting point, and the only flexibility that will come out of it, well, the best flexibility that will come out of it, will be through your playstyle stuff. I find that having a mix works well with me. I think if I kept playing with the drummer more, I would probably find a reason to swap him out for even a third banner to a point. I think that could actually be more useful with the amount of models you bring to the table.
True. I don't disagree with that.
But again, it's playstyle specific, right? And like I think you could very easily swing this list a bunch of different directions, which is why I think it's such a great versatile list. So 750 points, 50 models, 15 bows. I don't mind it, especially with a lot of move 8.
Your main downside is your army-wide D5, which means it can be very fragile against, it means most strength 3 armies just still tear you to shreds. Elf shooting can be scary for you. You do have a lot of shooting, but still going to lose out the trades against elf shooting.
Yeah, well, the thing is, like, if you're 24 inches apart, you still have to commit to a full turn of shooting where they can stand still.
Exactly.
Or and crossbow, that usually will be the big difference.
The other thing is crossbows will tear your shooting apart because your shooting's D4, so they
also true.
4s, whereas you'll be on 4s, 5s.
Yeah.
Or even 6s.
Or even 6s against
Corsairs.
Yeah.
Good
and
luck.
dwarves.
And dwarves.
Yeah. Like, yeah. There's a reason this army fell out of the top of the meta. And that's because it does have quite big limitations. That being the heroes that you bring. They're all 2 wounds, 1 fate characters. Which is just such a big feels bad if there's a big scary walking around the battlefield. Like, I very, very, very distinctly remember watching a friend of mine who played this legion a lot get tapped in by an Imrahil and just watch his army melt in front of that lance. Like, if it gets to play the game the way they want to, those big 150 plus heroes just mulch these guys. And I think that's one of the big scary parts of the Legion. But outside of that, again, fantastic starting point. If I had to recommend someone to start Isengard, I'd probably say either these guys or the Saruman control list that you wrote would probably be the best entry level.
Yeah. Just buy that starter box. You have part 2 armies, basically.
Literally, yes.
Battle Force, buy all the characters, buy like 8 crossbows and a set of berserkers. And just
8 crossbows, not 9? 8.
Start with 8 and then buy 12.
Yeah,
Don't they come in 4 packs?
I thought they came in 3. Maybe
No,
they're 4.
I think they're 4
Oh, they're
packs.
resin now, aren't they?
They come in 4 packs.
Yeah, they're 4 now. Yeah.
I think. And then Corsair crossbows come in 3 packs.
Yeah.
I might be wrong.
When they were metal, they used to come in 3s. That's what I
They
remember.
might come in... I don't know. Look,
But-
you buy either 8 or you buy 9 and then you buy more and then you buy Vrasku and you're like set.
Exactly, yes. But yeah, let's jump into our final thoughts about Isengard. Hey.
It is a good list. It is in fact 3 lists.
Yeah, literally.
Arguably 5.
Yeah. I think, look, I mean, this army is one of the big 4, right? And there's a reason they're still as popular as they are, and that's A, because the model range is iconic for the movies, and I know that a lot of people fell in love with the 2 Towers, and all the things that happened around it happened because of the Uruk Hai. And I know a lot of people also just really enjoy playing an evil army that can hit combat hard and can play on a high fight value and a high shoot value list. And so just having those perks in the list is fantastic for it.
Yeah, look, it's my probably favorite non-Corsair evil army. All the evil armies are cool. They're all lame. Uruk Hai are the only cool ones. Yeah, look, I think that Uruk Hai is a sort of like... There's just a lot of different ways to build the army. There's a lot of really cool units. There's a lot of really cool interactions. I think Saruman is just the most fun wizard to play with. Like, there's just a lot of good in Isengard.
Yeah.
And like your downsides are usually stuff that's like can be mitigated, or it's like, oh, my models are expensive. Oh no, what a disaster! I have to pay 10 points.
Yeah,
It's not even that big a deal.
It's that. It's all the same big downsides a lot of armies have, right? It's the, oh man, it sucks that my fight 6 elves are 12 points. This is so upsetting.
Yours are 12, mine are 14.
But like, it's stuff like that, right? When you're looking at the way that the list works, if that's your biggest complaint with them, is it's your elite warriors are elite, then you're doing pretty well, all things considered.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And, like, I think we said at the start of the episode, I'll say it again, the model design really is excellent with Isengard. Like, there's a couple of misses. Dunland Warriors are not fantastic.
I don't mind them.
And the Wildmen are even worse.
Yeah,
I
the
think.
Wildmen I don't like. Dunland Warriors I think still look pretty cool. I think they have really good posing and really good general silhouette. Maybe their faces are a disaster. It is what it is.
Yeah,
That's
they
all
look
humans.
worse than the Uruk Hai do.
Look, that is what it is.
Yeah.
You can't do much about that.
But I mean, like I said, I think it's a fantastic army, and people who play this army, I think, have an absolute blast with it. I very rarely see someone playing an Isengard army that isn't the Legendary Legion for the blisters, that is struggling to play the game and have fun with it, because it is just a fun army, and it looks gorgeous, and it plays really well. So,
Yeah, that's all, yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you all for listening. I hope you enjoyed the show. It's been a while. There was a series of disasters, essentially, that occurred. But we are back, hopefully more frequently, if you
Yeah.
won't stop running away from me, because you're scared of losing a game.
yeah.
It is what it is. If you want to support us, give us a like, give us a comment. It's always great to hear from you guys. Tell us what you want to see. Tell us what you want to hear. Tell us what the demo charge has blown up.
Yeah,
And yeah.
all that sort of stuff, yeah.
Thanks for listening.
Yeah, have a lovely day.